All right, just like that, we are live, everybody. Welcome. Welcome to Hash Church episode 142. I see we got a nice stacked group hanging in the chat room. We got 70s Mama in there holding it down, Funky G, Ron Jones, Aaron Adjocate, and many, many, many more. So let's get to the invitations, shall we? Let's get to the invitations. Here we go. Boom and a boom. Now let's see what else I gotta do here. History, Mr. Genera. All right. Hope everyone's doing well today. I, of course, am at the end of a 6-day giveaway, finishing up with the Wake and Bake episodes here, just in my own office. Did one off the deck the other day, which was real nice. Welcome, Etienne.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Oh, doing well. I was just talking about the last week of giveaways. Gave away quite a few of these dark crystal glass bottles on my Wake and Bake show, and a couple of dab mats as well.
Sweet. Hey, thank you for turning me on to that glass cleaner, by the way.
Yeah.
Shit's good, man.
It works, let me tell you. And you know what? It's crazy because I call it glass cleaner. I use it only on quartz, and I use it on hot quartz, not something I would put onto hot glass, but I guess you can still boil the stuff and dip it into the boiled material, and it cleans glass as well. All right, Johnny B says he's seeing us soon. Send out the links here. How are things going in Etienne's world?
Oh, things are rolling around. There's a lot of things happening in the state capitol with the new regulations, so working on that. We have the National Cannabis Industries Association's national meeting coming up on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday here in Oakland. So We've got a whole bunch of experts from around the world rolling in. We almost hung out with Jen Doe last night, but she had to other things. But she's in town. She's now working for Gavita. So we were just trying to say, hey.
I was kind of hoping that you guys were going to link up with her. She was in Oakland looking for, hey, welcome, Mark Shaldone, Dr. Mark, and of course, Mr. Hey. Skunkman Sam.
The man.
How's it?
Good, Doc. Looks like you're out at a festival or something?
Always.
Oh, no. That's actually from a festival I was at 2 weeks ago. I'm just getting around to posting the pictures now,
That's how it happens.
Yeah, I gotta get what I can when I get cell phone signal, right? Because there's no cell phone signal at the festival, so you have to sort of chime in later.
Ah, yes. Yes.
It's a lot of fun.
Well, it looks like a pretty nice day here today. We've had quite a bit of rain on and off in Vancouver, but looks like we're going to get a decent shot of weather. I'm pretty excited about that because my boat is finally finished and ready to be taken out for the summer. Why is it finished, you ask? Because boats, you can't even put them away or take them out without dropping G's. Bust out another 1,000, bust out another 10,000, in fact, depending on what kind of boat you have. But yeah, boat's all ready. Going to be doing boat videos soon. Maybe I'll even go out and do a church from the boat. Who's to say? I can do as I so please. Church, boat church. Gonna join me?
What color is your boat?
My boat is like mostly white, but there's some red in it as well. It's kind of like a red and white competition towboat, ski boat.
Will that make you a naval chaplain?
You know what? I don't think so. I really don't.
Doesn't even make you a seaman.
I started out as a seaman many, many years ago. Yeah,
but nice. you grew out of it, right?
Yeah, I grew right out of it. And hey, we're live, and everyone in the chat room is going off. We got Bonsai Breeder in the room right now.
Yeah,
South Africa. What's that, Mark?
How tall is he?
We were all seamen until we had egg on our face.
Yeah, we all end up with egg on our face, don't we? That's all good. Ah, yes, the bubble boat, indeed. I think it's time for a little bit of a ripper. What do you guys say? Ready for a little rip?
Always.
That's what I like to hear. Like literally ready, like you have all your shit turned on and it's hot and you're real ready.
Oh yeah.
I'm not there.
I'm professional grade.
So
you are.
One of your compatriots from Canada was at the Amsterdam Cannabis Liberation event today at the Flavo Park.
Oh, nice.
Mr. Rick Simpson.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't really know Rick that well, but he's definitely been a loud voice in the cannabis industry here for the last 15 plus years.
Do tell, Sam. How'd that go?
I got along very, very good with him, but he is a bit like Jack Harrar in that he sort of leans towards conspiracy ideas.
Ah.
So he was absolutely convinced that Monsanto has been growing GMO cannabis in Uruguay and selling it there.
Yeah. Oh, that's rich.
That's what I call fake news.
Right. Oh, let me just get this microphone plugged in here, if I may.
Why don't we just do what is called proper and just call it fake? It's not news. It's just fake.
Well, it's presented as news in a newsy format. So yeah, it's fake, but it's fake news.
Yeah, it's probably like Monsanto commissioned a study at a university down there, and then it gets blown out of proportion that, oh, they're doing this now. So yeah, whatever.
There's a scientist, a lady in Italy, who tried to find GMO weed. She knew there was GMO weed. She collected samples worldwide, and she could not find one single bit of GMO weed.
Well, wait a second. All hybrids, by definition, have been genetically modified.
What is
But there's a difference between classical breeding and GMO. GMO
Absolutely.
implies that you're inserting something.
I know. Yeah, but it's the same. You end up with the same. You end up with a mutated gene, whether you do it by traditional plant breeding.
No, classical breeding does not mutate genes. You're wrong.
No. It does.
It alters them. It alters
Right.
the frequency, but it doesn't mutate them.
Well, yeah. Okay. If you find a strain under a certain sort of environmental stress, you're invoking what's called an induced response, and so certain genes are turned on and certain genes are turned off, and so yeah, these end up coming out with some type of mutant plant, whether you call it a mutation or not. It's a mutant.
If all you're doing is turning genes on and off, you're not mutating nothing.
Well, I'm saying that the plant that ends up coming out ends up looking different, which is
that's absolutely. Can you affect a phenotype? Yes. The genotype remains constant, although some genes may be turned on or off. But the genotype does not alter. Only the phenotypic expression is altered.
Yeah, and that's going to make the plant different, right?
It's going to make it look different. It might have more or less of a particular compound. Yes.
Right. It might make it look physically different too, like, right?
Possibly, yes.
Like a mutant, right?
No, not like a mutant, but similar to how a mutant might look, yes.
You guys are hilarious.
It'd be like me trying to pin you down on chemistry. I ain't going to be able to do it, Mark.
Hey, just, having a little fun, that's all.
No problem. That's exactly how Rick Simpson was. I mean, his mind was made up.
Was Rick Simpson chain smoking radioactive tobacco while he was there?
Yes, I criticized him and says, listen, how can you be all this for health and all this and then be chowing down tobacco?
Well, goes, why be worried?
I can't help it. I've smoked since I was 10 years old. And I says, well, why don't you use cannabis to help yourself change?
I just think that it's a wild thing to go on a conspiracy thing to tell people that Monsanto is going to be taking over cannabis and mutating it with GMO while smoking radioactive cigarettes
and supporting large multinational corporations that are holding cannabis down, right? Thank you very much, right?
Oh, dude.
It's almost like he's acting like a hypocrite or something.
Yeah.
Well, listen, the last time I saw him speak, he chain smoked cigarettes. He chain smoked them with another guy who now has since died, I think, of lung cancer. No joke, I swear to God.
Well, one thing I can say about Mr. Simpson is he likes a good bowl of full melt bubble. I mean, that's
Yes.
no doubt
Yes.
about that.
Yep. No, I've smoked full melt bubble with him. I just feel that I wish I could help him get off the cigarettes, particularly where I
tried.
saw him speak. I tried as well. When I saw him speak, people who were suffering with cancer came to see him speak, and he smoked cigarettes in their face the entire time. And I left. I was like, this is fucked. This is the most fucked thing. Like, I can't even deal with it. And the guy, I said one thing to the owner of the place, and he's like, this is my place. I'll smoke cigarettes if I want to. And I was like, okay. That guy was like dead 6 months later. Seriously, we need to get in touch. It's okay to call ourselves out when we're wrong. And, you know, smoking radioactive tobacco while promoting the cancer killing benefits of cannabis, to me, seems like a really, really fucked up thing to do. Just take a break on your addiction while you speak to these people. It's not that big of a deal. You can go smoke your radioactive cigarettes, 20 minutes after you're done your talk, but to chain smoke the entire time.
You know how smokers are. Until they quit, they'll swear they're doing it for enjoyment. Whereas every study that's ever been done shows that people smoke to stop the pain of withdrawal.
Your body comes.
Ned's got a perfect example. He says, hey, everyone has a poison of choice, just saying. And I agree, Ned. Everyone does have a poison of choice, but to smoke that poison of choice in front of people who have cancer seems to be a little off. And we're not talking shit about anyone behind anyone's back. We're talking shit. We're talking shit, and it's recorded. So this is recorded shit. All right, we'll all talk at the same time.
I told Rick point blank, listen, I'm telling you this from compassion. You really need to stop this shit.
Sugar's not great either, but the neat thing about sugar when you're consuming it is you don't jam it down other people's throats, which is the case with radioactive smoke. It's not safe to breathe in, even second and third hand. I don't want anything to do with it, so gotta get rid of it. Yeah, Rick can come on and defend himself, no problem. I'm not talking shit behind Rick's back. This is a panel, and we talk shit right to your face. You can watch it. You can call us. You can talk to us. We have no problems defending everything that we're saying.
I wouldn't talk shit to his face. I'd be too busy making a joke about him.
Well, there you go. Sam style. All I'm saying is lose the cigarettes for, oh, you know who it, and it was also another one. It was John's doctor there, Dr. Hornby. He was the other one that was just chain smoking cigarettes. I think when it comes to cancer, when we're at the point where people are getting upset with people who are making sugary treats and saying, hey, those are no good, that feeds cancer. Well, then obviously we have to admit that radioactive tobacco also feeds cancer. We know it for a fact. You don't even have to be that knowledgeable in regards to cigarettes causing cancers. I think it says it all over the pack from the people who are actually selling it to you. So it's not like we're talking about something that is,
So probably the worst ones are actually, remember when you was a kid and you'd chew up those little candy cigarettes?
Oh yeah, I totally remember those. Trying to make sure
they
you
were
had the right
penny
tip.
candies.
right?
Yeah, if you get them when they're right out of the package, you could actually blow on it, and a little puff of powdered sugar would come out like smoke.
Wow, I didn't
I
know.
don't remember that.
I didn't know John Burfellow smoked cigarettes. I'm glad I didn't know him during that time. Whew.
Yeah.
Hey, welcome, Forrest.
Welcome, Forrest. Oh, can't hear you, Forrest.
He's like,
Sorry.
oh,
You can hear the
snap.
forest through the trees.
Hey, I used
Yeah.
to smoke cigarettes. I quit 20 years ago, so it was the hardest
Wow.
thing I ever did.
More power to you. My daughter smoked like 10 or 15 years, and she just quit smoking about 6 months ago, and I'm so happy.
Well, Peter S. just said he's a former patient of Dr. Todd Mikaria, and we lost him to cancer from cigars. It's a scary one. The conversation was going to be cancer today. It started out through cigarettes. It started out through a sort of strange.
Well, first we've got to get everybody to have cancer, then we can talk about it. So if we encourage everybody to smoke cigarettes, we can speed up the process.
Well, I'm not. I'm not going to endorse that. in any way, shape, or form. I don't want everybody to get cancer. Unfortunately, it's down to 1 in 2, so half of us are going to get cancer. So potentially, that's the reality of what we've created in this environment. So it's
Some
a
of us probably
reality.
have cancer. We don't even know it.
Yeah, that's true. And in fact, every single day, we kill a cancer cell inside of our bodies. You know what I'm saying? That's just the reality of what everybody is going through. Unfortunately, now it looks like half of us.
Hello, test.
There you go, Forrest.
There we go.
We got your voice,
right.
but no physical viewing.
Coming in bassy, I like it.
Yeah, well, there you go. It's that new microphone.
That's right. He's got the Barry Manilow microphone.
Oh yeah. How you been doing, Forrest?
I think I'm still having issues. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you. We just can't see you.
All right. Well, hey, maybe that's for the best for your audience there.
It's possible. It's possible.
There we go. All right. There we go. All set up. Good morning.
Oh, look at that. I see ya. I hear ya. Everything's gravy.
How
All
are things in Forrest's world?
Hey, things are good. Things are good. Fighting here on the state level here in California, on the local level, working with kids and families from cancer to you name it. So things are good here. Progress. I love that right now in the cannabis world, especially in medicinal cannabis, it's just after years and years and years and years and years of just struggling, it seems to just be snowballing right now as far as social awareness and change. So I don't know. Things are good for me. It's hard to complain.
Well, it's because we've been working on this for, decades now. And
Yeah.
we fortunately got a groundswell working to where we have legislators that are willing to listen and to acquiesce. And we're past the discussion of, hey, this is medical marijuana. We're past that now. Now it's getting to the nuts and bolts of it, which is a challenge and not without its own set of headaches. But this is the part of the process, due process. You can actually be involved. And thank you for being active and being involved and contributing to making people's lives better for all.
And speaking of better lives, how's Silas doing?
It's doing good, man. It's doing good. We've been, I'm really slow and meticulous with all the kids I work with, and that is no different from my own. So it's been a slow gain back to where he was when we had him completely seizure free. But after, those who don't know the story, we lost all the sources to his medicine because it was really highly tailored. It wasn't something that was readily available in stores. And we had the sheriff take down the people who were cultivating for us. And then we had our county ban everything. That's really how I started getting really active. And it's been about 1.5 years getting back to where we were because cannabis doesn't grow overnight. It took a long time. We ended up in the hospital, but I used that situation as a platform for social awareness in our neighborhood. So it's done a lot of good. And now we have him, I think when he was at his peak, for those who don't know, he has a condition called Lennox-Gastaut syndrome. And those seizure disorders, those rare ones, are just nasty. They're horrific. And he was having somewhere around 2,500 seizures a month. We were told when he got the diagnosis, it was really just so tactful on the doctor's part that he said, your son has this condition called Lennox-Gastaut syndrome. He probably won't live to see his 10th birthday. He was 5 at the time. That was his next sentence. So, all right, doc. Well, thanks for letting me off easy on that. Appreciate it. Well, just on May 20th, he just celebrated his 10th birthday, and his seizures are down by 99.6%. I did the math for his birthday, meaning he was having some around 2,500. Now he's having around 10 a month, and he's off 100% of the pharmaceuticals that he was on that were poisoning him and not really doing any good to begin with. So I don't know how much better we could be doing. I am pretty ecstatic at that note, but definitely working on that last 0.6% for sure.
That is unbelievable. I've many times I've heard of friends getting busted, friends having their crops taken away, not being able to pay the bills they were going to be paying, and even ending up in jail. But wow, you're taking it to a next level when you take some kid's medicine away there's nothing else that works. Like you putting some people on a 1 or a 2 or a 3 year journey of more seizures. And that's so wrong.
Well, at the time, we were 18 months seizure free. And when we lost his meds, we spiraled out. He spiraled out of control. He ended up in UCSF, hospitalized for a while. And we're still having, some pretty intense grand mal seizures that we've never been able to get back to where we were 100% seizure free. So we're not back to where we were. But yeah, that's when, for those in California, the Sacramento Bee, our state capital newspaper, did a 3-part series on myself and Silas called the Silas Project. If you Google that on the Sac Bee, and they interviewed the sheriff, they talk about the raid. It was, and I think it was a real eye opener for a lot of people because, when you lay out the arguments, as a lot of them did, it just sound really callous. When you actually have a camera in front of you and the sheriff has to say, well, I don't know if the dad's really doing it for his kid or if he's just a front man for the cannabis industry. Jesus. That's when I said, okay, well, I've got a platform to now just rail them in the court of public opinion, because the reality is they don't have the moral, this whole talking point that we've all heard for decades of the evil weed and protecting our children. Well, I'm working to protect children as well. And when it comes to the science and when it comes to reality, the old reefer madness arguments really don't hold any water, and they don't hold the moral and ethical high ground. We do. And, my goal was to just, as a parent, not waste that platform and just really force them to have to explain themselves, and it really helped change public opinion in our county, and it's really been spreading up through California, and that's why things are great right now, because the reality is medical cannabis is going to be, I think, the tide that really has the sea change in communities that are hard to reach. Different church communities, different whether it's military, police background, we tend to get in these little bubbles, and we our ideas start to sync up as well. But the reality is that illness is bipartisan, right? It doesn't care where you come from. It doesn't care what your job is. It doesn't care if you're in a church group or a military group or a firefighter group or a hippie compound group, or it doesn't matter. It hits everybody. And when your loved one's lives are on the line and your doctor looks you in the eye and says, there's really not much we can do, but we've heard some of these other options might be beneficial, your ideas start to change really quickly, and that's why the people who are still trying to fight for sell this cannabis as evil prohibition nonsense they're just wasting their time, because
what medicine actually works best for Silas? What's the ratio of THC to CBD, for example?
Yeah, so that's one of the things I think I want to get into when we start discussing cancer today, is how it's presented a lot of times. And I think when Todd gets in, I think that was his point, is how it's presented is how it can be somewhat beneficial or dangerous. And with Silas, for a year and a half, we did what everyone else, said we should do, right? And this was 5 years ago or so. So in children and CBD, it was still really new. It was, there wasn't a lot understood, but everyone was saying CBD, CBD, CBD. So we tried everything we could find. We were spending somewhere around $2,500 a month on products, and it never did anything. Never gave him a single day without a seizure. We did see some cognitive improvement that has now become pretty commonly understood with CBD, but it didn't help with seizures at all. So it wasn't until I started getting with local cultivators start to grow, at the time, strains that weren't as available. You couldn't really find 2-to-1 or different balance mixed tinctures in stores at that time, that we started really to find some success. And the strain that really did it for Silas, and we use it to this day, was the strain that we had flown in from Europe, is where it was originally bred, but it's called Medihaze. And I found it to just be an amazingly beneficial strain. And it lands at about 2-to-1, almost exactly. It's got a really nice terpene profile. It's got some lanolin, and it's got some CBG that comes in there. So it's got some really good other helpful anticonvulsants. And
when you say 2-to-1, you mean twice as much THC as CBD?
No, I typically have the CBD first. I know that we haven't in our groups really decided which is going to go first, but no, it's twice as much CBD.
Yeah, that's the
THC.
CBD first.
Yeah, that's how I tend to do it.
Why is CBD first, Mark?
I was told that just because alphabetical order, right?
That's how I hear it most often, so that's how I tend to do it.
Yeah, so if
I'm not thinking one way or the other. I'm just curious.
I wanted to add one thing to what Forrest was saying, the importance of sharing genetics.
Yeah.
The importance of sharing genetics. Do you see the perspective now, people? I'm not talking about some dude who might grow better weed than you down the road in California who's going to get the cultivar and now you can't sell it because this is the fear and scarcity that keeps these cuts from getting to the right people. And when there are people that require cuts like Silas for this accurate cannabinoid and terpene profile that obviously they've explained to us that losing it has been a huge problem and a year to 2 years of seizures and problems. Share your genetics, because if there's a chance that a kid like Silas, that it can come across his table and offer him a better quality of life, then what has that taken away from you, allowing that to be shared? Share your genetics, for God's sakes, people.
Yeah, it's a big pie.
Pretty big.
I don't see the shortage there. And one of the things, it's funny you mentioned share your genetics. One of the people who has become a volunteer and mentor and really great asset for the Caladrius Network, which is the truly nonprofit charitable organization that partners with cultivators and others to basically have a makeshift compound pharmacy and make these medicines for terminal and catastrophically ill kids and then donate to them at no cost ever, is Wade Laughter, who's joined us on Hash Church before and was the father of Harlequin, right? The strain Harlequin. And there's been a lot of people who've come across good strains, and some have lived and some have died and some have gotten well known and some have not. And, I believe solely that the reason Harlequin has gotten to be at the level of recognition that it is because when he found it, his whole mindset was that I want to help and see as many people heal as possible. And he just spread it as far as he could, as opposed to the latter where he could have taken it and just said, hey, I'm going to make this my proprietary strain and not share it. And I doubt it would be as prominent as it is today if he had.
Harlequin was bred from catatonic, correct?
No, it's an interesting story. It was like some landrace seeds that he had from Switzerland. So that's why Harlequin is a clone-only strain. Is he was just sprouting these different. They had no idea what they were. They had got them from Switzerland. He knows a little better than I did.
Rope-a-dope.
And he was able to just find this one that genetically was completely different than all the others and had a different look and different attitude. And we call him the plant whisperer. He loves to be in there and talk to the plants. And this one said, I'm different. And he just had the foresight enough to recognize something was different about it and started taking cuts. And back then there weren't a lot of CBD strains out there. So when he was given clones to, I think it was Harborside at the time, and it came back at 4-to-1, right? CBD to THC. Everyone kind of perked up, and because there just wasn't a lot. I think Ringo's work was out there a little bit, but at the time there just wasn't a lot of strains out there that had that profile.
Yeah, exactly. Someone's saying the classic, whenever you say share, hey, we hear you, Bubble Man, but sometimes breeders work a lifetime for a special plant. Yeah, we know. Sam exists and very few others do in this world. There are a fraction of people who have spent their life working on cannabis varieties. A fraction. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about everyone else who wants to act like them without the actual overhead or the history of doing the work and calling themselves a true breeder. I'm not talking about someone giving away their life's work. I'm talking about sharing a fucking clone. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Clonership is a downer. I took that term from someone in the chat room. I think it was Pangea. Clonership is for fools. I like that. Share.
I copyrighted clonership.
Yeah, I know. You own it, Sam. We know. I'll send you some money through my bank account right now, you bastard.
No problem. Bitcoin, please.
Could I ask Forrest, though, if you just took like a generic 2-to-1 CBD to THC ratio oil and use that for his medication, is that effective?
No, it hasn't worked as well. It's been really interesting. It's really what, I just did an interview with Ethan Russo where I just grilled him on the entourage effect for exactly this reason. And I don't know if folks saw the article in Scientific America that just came out and kind of pooing on the entourage effect, which I think is only makes sense if you've had zero like hands-on experience with patients. But you know, it's quite the opposite. At times we saw little to no benefit, and at times we saw adverse effects where I think a strain that for Silas he responded adversely to was one called Electra 4, which is rather common as well. And we were using it's not a 2-to-1, but we were using it to try to recreate a 2-to-1 with other THC strains, right? Just mixing them until we hit the cannabinoid balance that we saw. And a lot of times, not only did we see no benefit, we would see an increase in activity. So I haven't been able to put my finger on. I have some speculation as to what it might be, but I try not to speculate too much publicly until I know.
What about taking it to the next level then and adding the terpenes that you see in the profile of the plant to see if you can reproduce what the plant has, to find out if there is some magic of that particular strain, or is it just the chemicals that the strain is producing?
I haven't gone that far. I mean, I know that there's some people now who are reconstructing them with like organic food grade terpenes. I didn't have the access to the right terpene isolate from cannabis, but I'm not sure what you're talking about there, but I know some people are doing the food grade reconstruction of terpenes, and I think the jury's out as far as how the community feels about that, but I haven't done that myself as far as working with kids in medicine.
It's that unknown of, is his condition specific to, again, the phytochemical profile in the plant, which cannabinoids, terpenes, and others. And so it's probably somewhere in the others, and you have, a variety of chemicals in the toolbox to sort of play with to try to understand exactly what might be leading to that entourage.
Right.
Taking it orally, correct?
Yeah. A lot of these kids can't swallow pills.
Then the flavonoids step in too. When you smoke it, flavonoids are deactivated. When you take it orally, the flavonoids could be quite powerful.
Right. That's right.
Well, and we're just scratching the surface of understanding all the other more sensitive cannabinoids and terpenoids and flavonoids that are in there. We don't have them all mapped out yet. We've got a small percentage of them mapped out, and every time I look at the tests and see this blank other, I scratch my head and say, man, I can't wait to find it until we can really specify what a lot of those others are. And we're discovering new cannabinoids all the time.
Yeah, but I would say we probably have the majority of the cannabinoids and the terpenes in cannabis already mapped out.
I think we probably do, but I'll tell you what we don't have mapped out.
We don't have them all, but
is how they are released, depending on how we consume them. Even from different surface areas like titanium to ceramic to glass to quartz to sapphire, I find there to be subtle nuances that from
different heat sources.
Different heat sources, absolutely. I think it's a fairly complex thing when we really break it down, and I think that we really are on the tip of the iceberg here. Obviously, not having been really able to legally research this plant for decades has sort of stunted the release of this information. But I feel like we're right now in this amazing time for cannabis information.
If you think about it, Marcus. People did not understand the importance of terpenes 20 years ago. There was little to no talk on terpenes.
That's not true at all.
I think in the cannabis community, it's fairly true.
That's not true.
In the
Ala Wallach won the Nobel Prize for terpenes in 1902.
Right. Is he in the cannabis industry?
Otto Wallach? No, he's a German professor.
Right. We're talking about the cannabis industry.
Terpenes. We're talking about cannabis terpenes.
Yeah, the cannabis industry.
And how they can modify or potentiate.
And I added in the cannabis industry just because I knew exactly what he was talking about. When Sam showed me this in 2000 and I don't know if it was 2000 or 2001 or 2002. I remember it was the early 2000s. And I had not even seen pure cannabinoids. So I was tripping on like CBG and CBD and DHCA and all these different cannabinoids he had. But the terpene modulation, the terpene effect of how I felt from a recreational standpoint, which, I felt like I was pretty much a professional at that point. You can pretty much rest assured that the point in time when you realize you're a professional cannabis user is where you find yourself in Skunkman Sam's living room smoking on his stash. That is the moment in time where you're like, yeah.
Well, when it comes to terpenes, I haven't had a chance to say too much more, but with terpenes being a big part of my recovery stuff, I really realized that. But when you put that purple punch underneath of my nose after my surgery and it took my pain away, that's when I really truly realized how much terpenes affected my pain control. 100%. I mean, researching it for so long, the CBD strains and stuff like you guys have been talking about, but seriously, when you put that terpene underneath my nose in the hospital, and it took that pain away, and nothing else did. That was amazing.
To me, terpenes don't really get you high the way cannabis does with THC. I'm talking about. But that said, my employees in my greenhouse told me that when they work all day harvesting plants from a greenhouse, because it was a 1 acre greenhouse, what happens is by the end of the day, they're really high and spaced out, and they feel dingy. And so I says, how can this happen? I mean, THC doesn't get transmitted through the skin with resin particularly, and it doesn't, you can't vaporize, when you're breathing the air, you're not getting THC, you're getting terpenes in the air. So
a lot of these terpenes, a lot of these hybrids are extremely high in beta-myrcene.
Yeah,
and beta-myrcene is a terpenoid and a cannabinoid. It bonds to the CB2 receptor and is known to be a sedative.
Terpenoid, it's not a cannabinoid, but whatever. No, I understand.
It's considered a cannabinoid because it bonds to the CB2 receptor. They're hybrids. Some of them do both.
No.
Yeah.
Not a cannabinoid.
I'll let Ethan know next time I talk to him because he just did a great talk on it.
Tell him that I told him, it is a terpene. It's not even a terpenoid. Myrcene is a terpene. Pure and simple. Monoterpene.
Well, what is a cannabinoid? A cannabinoid is something that bonds to a cannabinoid receptor, right?
Well, okay, yeah. I mean, so
binding a diverse chemical compound that acts on cannabinoid receptors.
There's all kinds of synthetic analogs which bind to the cannabinoid receptors, but they're not cannabinoids.
Right.
Well, they're synthetic cannabinoids.
No. Okay, what about anandamide? It binds to the receptor.
It's an endogenous cannabinoid. I mean, there's different classes of cannabinoids, but we're talking about anandamide's an endogenous cannabinoid, like 2-AG.
Put it this way, it's not a phytocannabinoid.
No, it's okay.
Myrcene is the textbook monoterpene in cannabis. Period. End of story. It doesn't matter what it does to the cannabinoid receptor. It's a terpene, and in this context, we use myrcene as a terpene, not as a cannabinoid.
But when we know,
agree to disagree.
Here's the thing. What about the fact that terpenes are the building blocks for cannabinoids?
Yes. So I was just going to say that, Marcus. So the defining event that makes phytocannabinoids is the formation of CBGA. That's why they call it the so-called stem cell terpene. So when that carbon-carbon bond formation happens between GPP and the aromatic ring of allylic acid, that is the formation. That carbon-carbon bond event is the first step in cannabinoid biosynthesis. So everything past that is a phytocannabinoid. The synthetic cannabinoids, were made by pharmaceutical companies to target the cannabinoid receptors. But in this context of chemistry, I think we put myrcene clearly into the terpene bucket because it's a very prevalent terpene in most strains of cannabis. And while it is a precursor to other terpenoids, it's basically a very well-known terpene, and its effect.
It's absolutely a terpene.
It's one of the more important cannabis terpenes because it both potentiates and modifies the effects.
Yes.
It was one of the first ones that you had on your desk there at your house, Sam.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, okay, we'll talk about semantics. We can say semantics, whether it's called a cannabinoid or not, but it's obviously a CB2 agonist. I mean, you can call it not a cannabinoid. It's just a terpene that antagonizes the CB2 receptor.
A lot of
Nevertheless, that effect, back to what was being said, may have something to do with folks who are heavily involved in inhaling over long periods of time, feeling some sort of very real effect.
Yeah, when I finally piss tested them with a really, really good piss test, and none of the employees had any THC in their body. None of them were smokers, and they all reported having feelings to lesser and more degree depending on the individuals. But
and any action of a small molecule like myrcene on CB2 receptors is strictly allosteric and not through the binding pocket in which cannabinoids and other agonists and antagonists bind. And I would say that categorically, again, what you're going to find with myrcene is it just upregulates cannabinoid receptor expression. That's been already shown, but it does so in secondary effects. And I think the way it does it is it loosens up fluidity at the membrane. And so myrcene is known to do that, meaning that it starts exchanging things from the inside and outside of extracellular and intracellular compartments.
Man, this thing called cannabis is complex.
Yeah, but that's where the fun comes in.
That's right.
Wouldn't it be really boring if we understood absolutely everything about it?
No, and listen, the deeper we go into these conversations, I feel the deeper we go, the less we know. That's what I feel.
More questions
That's
we
true.
think of.
Man, it's incredible.
But that's what's drove us. I mean, each one of us has a curiosity that drove us even further. If that curiosity wasn't there, if it had already been discovered, or we didn't understand it, we would have probably just given up and, et cetera, et cetera. But each of us have found our own salvation through this plant one way, shape, or form. And it's still almost specifically to us. And it shows how diverse the plant is and its effect on so many different people in so many ways. It's
Forrest, are you thinking about beta caryophyllene and not myrcene? Beta caryophyllene is a known CB2 antagonist. I think that's what you're referring to, and not myrcene. I'm not finding myrcene in the literature.
I don't know if he just talked to Ethan. Listen, the thing about Ethan is
you might just have it mixed up, Mark.
Beta caryophyllene is well. Myrcene's known too as well, but yeah, beta caryophyllene is probably the one that's getting the most attention at the moment.
Right.
Yeah, as an immune modifier, correct.
Right.
I just saw Ethan speak here in Vancouver, and I learned a bunch of stuff. I felt pretty awesome after watching him speak. He is definitely a great asset to the community.
I saw that speech too. It was available online.
Yeah, I threw it up as well on my. I just taped him and Dr. Bob, who went into the deep theories of thermodynamics and the far from equilibrium theories in 37 minutes, which was quite something to see.
Ethan has a truly deep understanding of cannabis.
Yes.
For a scientist,
I don't think there's a disagreement there. I just think it's maybe some semantics and words that we're talking about which is which. Their interaction is their interaction. I mean, whether you want to label it a cannabinoid when it's doing some of those functions or not is, I guess, up for debate still. But what is important to know is especially getting back to the topic of terpenes is how influential they can be. And not all of these terpenes are just modulating. Some are having different interactions with receptors. And, as we start to understand that better, especially as it pertains to, neurotransmitter issues where we're really trying to fine tune how the brain is functioning and be able to improve whatever malfunction is causing issues. These terpene interactions and modulation, same with the flavonoids, are just absolutely fascinating. I feel like we're just barely scratching the surface of what we understand at this point.
I can honestly say that when we did the terpene work around 2000, we were thinking about it a little bit before that, but around 2000 we did it. What we found out right away was wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. Terpenes mixed with THC, if you use the right terpenes, absolutely can make the THC subjectively seem twice as strong. I mean, there's absolutely no doubt, and we found that out immediately. But there's a lot, like you say, we were going to look at the flavonoids next, but then almost 20 years ago, I found out the flavonoids are deactivated when they're smoked. So I never explored the flavonoids to see what they could do orally to pure THC, because pure THC is really kind of boring. But when you mix it with the right terpenes, and for orally, maybe the flavonoids too, it really alters the reality.
I think it's why Entourage and Ensemble both fit the bill so well. Like, to me, without ever hearing anyone say those things, but sitting in Sam's living room and dabbing the pure THCA and kind of being like, and him being like, what do you think? What do you think? Like, it's not that much. It's not that. And I was kind of like, yeah, it's kind of one dimensional. I hear what you're saying about boring. And then it was like, add the terp. And suddenly it just really was like the difference between watching someone sing a cappella to now like have like 10 other people behind them, or the orchestra, so to speak. So I think both Ensemble and Entourage are very suited, fitting terms.
My favorite finding from those first couple days we did this was when Rob Clark said, if this was all there was to cannabis, I wouldn't be a smoker.
Yeah, right?
Pure THC. I laughed my head off.
Yeah, but you guys had already taken it to such a level. Like, you were already at a point in time where you preferred smoking your resin that came in at around a 60% THC versus the 70 plus and higher. You were already at a point where you were like, I prefer like more terpenes and stuff, because
well,
if
it's not that it was more terpenes as much as it was easier to smoke the way I like to smoke. I like to use a wooden match on a very, very, very fine screen. And when I made it past about 60% THC by making pure, just only heads only, it would just, as soon as you put the heat near it, it would drip through the frickin' screens, no matter how fine the screens were.
Yeah, but you know what? You would never lower a percentage of THC if it affected your high. You can say you did it because you like to.
The difference between the stuff that was 60% THC and the stuff that was 80% THC, really nobody besides me could probably tell. Well, maybe you could, but not a whole lot.
Not at first. The first time I inhaled that stuff, I felt like, I don't know. I thought like it was almost like smoking DMT or something, where you're like, yeah, sure, I'll try this. I mean, how strong can it be? And then just literally being like, I wonder if I'm going to like lose control of my bowels and pass out and shit myself on Sam's floor right now, because that is how high I got.
If we wanted to do that, we would have need to smoke haze resin instead of skunk resin.
Yeah, well, you know what? I've always seen the strange link between the incredible therapeutic properties of cannabis and taking it to that highest level of connoisseurness, of being able to find the best of the best of the best, really did simultaneously work out for patients who could, be like, hey, thanks for holding on to this stuff. Because let's be honest, if we weren't chronic, if people like us didn't exist for the last 30 plus years, a lot of these cultivars might not be available right now to people who are coming out of the mainstream. And it was really Wendy Turner who brought my eyes to this. When I asked her, I said, oh, Wendy, you're such a straight mom. Like, I just love you. It's amazing. You've come in and you've just gained this momentum in the cannabis industry. But what do you think of us? Like, what do you think of all these long-haired dudes? And we're sitting and we're smoking our bongs and whatnot. And she just replied, you know what? I love you guys. I think that what you guys have done is amazing. You've held on to this plant for all of these years so my son could come along and gain access to it and use it as a medicine, improve the quality of his life and extend his life. So it is a really neat kind of thing that simultaneously our love of cannabis, the connoisseurness of trying to find the best, has worked out not only for something that some may see as shallow, as just adult use, but it's also really benefiting people from the medical aspect of cannabis. So I think that's really great.
I need some of that bowel emptying cannabis.
Dude, I'm telling you, dude, that was another world. I'll never forget Rob. Rob used to be like, oh, I left Sam's house so stoned. Yes. I'd be like, well, how stoned could you possibly have left his house? Like, I mean, it sounds a little bit like a story. It was the first time I really thought, is Rob telling stories? Is Rob kind of adding? He's not. He wasn't. Absolutely not. I left there with my left leg not working. I was like hobbling down his street. I'm telling you, that's what mentors are for. When they say you can stand on the shoulders of giants, they don't tell you that you might be up there shaking a little, holding your arm close to your body. Hey, welcome, Todd. Welcome, Tony. We still haven't said hi to Tony. My goodness. I'm sorry, Tony. You've been in the room a while.
We just watched Tony make a coffee. I was hoping there's some hash in there or something. So
Look, he's never coming back. He's left. He's mad.
I actually do think there was hash in his coffee, to be honest.
Wow, it'd be very, very hard to imagine his coffee not having hash. Oh, my goodness.
I mean,
that's
come on.
That's the other side of it, too. You're right. You're right. You can't go into a shop without them handing you water with cannabinoids in it. So pretty much everything is fair game.
Everything is fair game. And never fight against access and never fight against options. This is my new method in the cannabis industry. Don't fight against established access. Don't fight against established processes. If you don't like an access point or you don't like a process, focus on making the access point that you do like or want, or focus on the extraction process that you do believe in and appreciate. I think that when I think of all the different people using cannabis for all of the different reasons, I think my uncle who has cancer right now, I'm not going to send him sugary treats. I want to find him some options that are sugar-free, that won't feed cancer, while hopefully simultaneously trying to produce a little apoptosis in his body, which is really kind of what the conversation was going to be about today, Todd, wasn't it? You made a nice post on the internet, which of course I think right away many kind of misread. I think you had to
Many did misread it. When I made the post, I encountered a friend whom I'd spoke to before. I'd never met, but when I was at the Cannabis Cup, I met. And she's dealing with cancer. And the hard part in dealing with it, in my opinion, is you have a lot of people around you saying that, X amount of bud or X amount of oil is going to cure everything. And they don't know, what kind of cancer you have. They don't kind of know what kind of body type you have. They don't know how progressed the cancer is. They don't know where the cancer is. And, and I believe, I of all people, totally believe that cannabis can help cure us. But when you have friggin' quacks stepping in and saying that basically you could give 2 grams of grass, in a suppository up someone's ass, and it doesn't matter if the guy's 250 pounds or if it's a 50-pound little boil, you really got to question that as being seriously, that's a dose that just covers everybody. And I think that this is where I'm getting a little annoyed with people, because there are people stepping into this community now that are literally peddling bullshit to desperate people who are really looking for help, and they're getting snake oil salesmen that are giving them baloney regimens that may or may not help, and then the other side of it that bothers me is the oils, like Rick Simpson oil, which I have total issues with. You don't know the potency of it. You don't know what cannabis went into it. You don't know if it was laden with pesticides or plant growth regulators. We don't know unless you're making it yourself. And if you use a volatile solvent like alcohol that can actually pull this stuff out with it, you could be giving your kid or your loved one or yourself some poisons that will aggravate your medical condition. And this is driving me nuts, because there's no real group that's making sure everything's clean, and because everything's illegal, we're kind of all like, desperately relying on the kindness of others. And that's great. But now that we're seeing tests come back and cannabis fail, and, plants laden with Eagle 20 or other things that we don't want to consume, I think we all got to become super conscious of what we're doing and what we're giving others, especially now that there are people that are really trying to help, very fragile members of our community who are really weak and are already dealing with medical conditions and are looking for hope. And I'm all about cannabis being that bright light at the end of the tunnel, but I'm really not all about these wannabe, basically snake oil salesmen coming in wanting to peddle whatever crap they made and pretending like they have all the answers. So
they follow hope, Todd. They follow hope. Hope is their lure. They see that hope and they're like, oh yeah, there's going to be some good And the real bummer about what they do is they not only obviously are evil incarnate, but they're also simultaneously fucking with people who are doing it for real, doing this work out of passion and trying to learn this knowledge. The Forests and the Tonys, people, the Todds for that matter, people that have a real fucking foundation in this that comes from like a lack of a quality of life or a potential loss of life or a potential fatal disease. When you come from these foundations, you're not trying to sell snake oil to people. You understand? And the people who are doing it, the people who are selling the CBDs right now, and I'm not saying all of them, but when I hear that term, the CBDs, I said to someone the other day, I said, what are you talking about, your CBD cultivar? Are you selling like a pure CBD product? And he says, no, it's just, what's that?
All the different stereoisomers, they're all different little CBD molecules.
Yeah, but when they call it the one thing, I just want to know, is that a monomolecular medicine that you're talking about? Or are you really talking about a cultivar that has 30 terpenes and maybe half a dozen cannabinoids, but one of them is CBD, so it's now called the CBD? That to me is a dangerous game.
They have no clue.
Yeah, so it's a tricky situation for sure.
I thought it was CBDs.
The CBD,
you know, and this is what bugs me too, because I hate to come out and be like, oh, I believe in CBD as well, but like I have really, ever since I was a patient of Marinol, I've never really believed in the single molecule theory. And when people step up and they're like, oh, I'm going to put CBD in everything and it's going to fix everything, I think you're back to Marinol. And, you know, not to be rude, but, you know, there's a lot more going on with all these terpenes modulating the cannabinoids effects. And unless you get a product similar to what Tony's putting out with Prana that's consistent, unless you can go back and get that again and again and again, you're not going to be able to get relief if you find it in that again and again and again. If you're mixing different batches of pot every time that you make up your RSO, Rick Simpson oil, you're going to get different effects every single batch. Go ahead.
I'll say though that because CBD is a fat soluble antioxidant, even in its pure form, it's healthy to consume, because a fat soluble antioxidant will be stored in your adipose tissue and released on metabolism. So I think it's actually a very different prophylactic way for your body to protect itself from disease.
Can I say this then too? You know, I am totally for us getting cannabinoids into our system. I believe that we don't know very much about the wonders that they're going to do. You know, I'm also telling a lot of people I talk to, I advocate, hey, go buy a hemp seed oil, activate your endocannabinoid system with essential fatty acids. Start with your diet
and exercise.
Yes. And, you know, there are things that people are doing. I mean, I get when you're sick, you're not really feeling like, yeah, let's get up and go to the gym. I feel like having a healthy meal. You're feeling horrible. But there's things we have to do to prepare our body for healing. It's not just a silver bullet. Everybody seems to get annoyed with me when they're like, how did you beat cancer? And I start going through this long litany of shit that I do. And halfway through, they're like, oh, I don't know if I'm up for all that. I don't know what to say at that point. I'm sorry. If you don't eat clean and take care of yourself, good luck. You're going to keep getting your condition. Go ahead, Forrest.
Oh, no, I laugh at it. I get that all the time. You know, we want the quick fix, and it just doesn't work that way. And I think that, you know, one of the things that I come across all the time is this same issue. And I think what people don't realize is when they just come in and they want cannabis to be magic, they tend to dangerously oversimplify things. And that's really where the risk is. It's not that cannabis can't be beneficial for tumors or CBD can't be beneficial for seizures. But when you don't do the homework to really understand the complexity and you start to want to give medical advice, you risk causing harm. And, you know, one of the first things we teach parents, because the question I get more than anything on our side is, which CBD should I get, right? They don't understand that it's cannabis and that CBD is just a molecule or a compound in cannabis. And I said, well, CBD is CBD. So if you're getting CBD, you know, unless we're going to get, you know, a lot of them aren't ready to start talking about more complex nuances, like we were talking about the entourage effect and other issues within some of these extractions. But, you know, if what the problem is someone will go in desperate, you know, wanting to save their kid or their loved one, and they'll say, okay, which CBD do we get? And they say, well, CBD is what cures seizures, so try this. They try it. It's either not close to the concentration for body weight that would be appropriate for what they need, or maybe it's just someone who isn't going to respond to CBD, which in my experience with now over 400 kids with rare epilepsy is the exception, one that just responds to just CBD. It's relatively rare. Yeah.
Of course, because you mentioned body weight and dose, can we talk about that for a second? Because I've, you know, certainly experienced some too with some patients, and would just be curious on what you found to be effective, like on a per kilogram or per pound.
Sure. Well, I mean, it depends on what you're doing. CBD by itself is going to typically, and they saw this in the Epidiolex trials as well, doesn't have much effect until you get in higher doses. But I mean, my philosophy has been this: anytime I try to look for a pattern that says what the answer is, all I see is that the answer is individual for each person. We've had people respond to micro doses and small doses that I was surprised that they responded to. And we've seen people need somewhere around 10 milligrams per kilo CBD, right? So that could be 5 milligrams per pound, where you have your average, 8, 9-year-old, that could be 500 milligrams a day. If you have an adult, it's going to get even higher based on body weight. But I haven't found a universal that this is, if you have this, you need X. And, and I have some theories as to why that is. I think that we see symptoms, and what we don't realize is that we're seeing the consequence of a breakdown in the body. So let's just stick with seizures, and we'll stick with the endocannabinoid system. We see this we see a seizure. Well, that's the consequence. What we don't see is the causality, and several different things can break down just within the system alone, that I think different types of cannabinoids and different composites, meaning the different mixtures of cannabinoids, have a different effect on those receptors. So we might see a seizure, but we don't know if the body's not producing 2-AG or 2-arachidinoglycerol or anandamide. We don't know if the receptors aren't being regulated properly or activated. We don't know if the body's not producing the enzyme necessary to break down anandamide and 2-HA when they bond, right? So all these different things can go wrong within the system, but all we see on the outside is this consequence. And I think that's why, and it's one of my latest thoughts in reading all the literature and studies as to why we have kids with the exact same conditions, even ones that manifest in the same way, respond completely differently to different types of cannabinoids at different doses. And that understanding is important to realize, why telling a parent that you need CBD, that's what stops seizures, and completely oversimplifying it can be dangerous. Because then what happens is they try CBD, they spend thousands of dollars, they go through all the mainstream products, some great, some are a complete scam and garbage, and then they say, well, I guess we're not the lucky ones, and CBD is not good for us, so my kid's not lucky. And then those kids can die. And I know families where they've given up, and the kids, or they thought they tried everything, and the kids die, and we go back and look at what they were using, and they hadn't even scratched the surface of what their options were. And they legitimately thought that their options had run out because the information they were getting was too oversimplified, and the person didn't really understand the depth and complexities, and they kind of get sold this miracle, and then when it doesn't work, they give up. So, I would say, to go back to your question and give someone else a chance to talk, this is what that dangerous oversimplification can be. And when it comes to the dosages, it really is, in my experience so far, it's been relatively individualized. There are some similarities we can categorize, but for the most part, we still go through the same system of, we have kids who for some reason respond to microdoses of acidic compounds, and we have some kids that don't start to respond until we hit 300, 400, 500 milligrams of CBD and sometimes THC a day, and all of a sudden you see that miracle switch kick on and their body's able to regulate.
Right. I'm glad you said that, actually. I think a lot of people are looking for a miracle cure. I didn't mean to cut you off, John. But I want to point out, there is no magic in Rick Simpson oil. The only thing there is that is healing anyone that's ever taken it are the cannabinoids and the terpenes working together in some way to help and benefit you. There's no magic in that oil.
Boiled off, doesn't he?
I was going to talk about the dosage, and one thing we were taking a look at, and this is back in the day, we're taking a look at nationality or race. So not only do we look at body weight, we look at the nationality. Some people are prone to take more higher dosages based on if they're Scottish or stuff like that. So it's things that we were looking at too that we also paid attention to. Just wanted to make mention of that.
Todd, you said terpenes in Rick Simpson oil. Isn't the procedure is just they boil it for a long time? I think most of
I agree with what you're saying. They're gone. The only magic I'm saying that's really in any of the oil are the cannabinoids and the terpenes that are left that modulate them. Because I believe on this panel, we all believe in terpene modulation. We've all had cannabinoids without terpenes, and they're which is why there's been a big thing about terpenes. So the problem I have with Rick Simpson oil is the inconsistency in making it, the product going into it, the alcohol as a solvent. I got a tons of issues with it. But really what people are looking for are the cannabinoids and the terpenes contained inside the cannabis plant. That's it.
I thought he was originally using naphtha and other nasty solvents and not really just trying to do something to cure himself. He wasn't necessarily trying to make a cure for everyone else. And I think because it worked for him, he wanted to share it with other people. But I don't think he was chemically knowledgeable of using things like naphtha, which are kind of nasty extraction. There's much better, cleaner extraction.
Can I point out, he points out to use isopropyl alcohol, which is a poison. And if people don't get that completely out of whatever product they consume, they can poison themselves. So telling people that isopropyl alcohol is interchangeable with, say, grain alcohol for consumable products as a solvent, to me is not only bad information, it is dangerous information.
I think there's a big confusion on even what Rick Simpson oil is. I mean, even I interviewed Rick once and asked him, like, what is Rick Simpson oil? Because I hear it used for everything. Are we talking about FICO, right? Full extract cannabis oil and any sort of extract, CO2, pressure, whatever. What is Rick Simpson oil? And really, no one can even answer that. Rick himself, it's like, well, it's just cannabis concentrate. So I have to. Anytime someone says Rick Simpson oil, I'm like, okay, what are you talking about? Are you talking about his method, or you?
Dash. It's his oil. Like Mark Sheldon oil, like Forrest Hurd oil. We all have oil. It's just his oil.
Right. Well, I've always said what Todd says. I've always told people this. I would also, not that we've really talked about it, but another danger of giving medical advice with cannabis when you really shouldn't be or don't know what you're saying is to direct people away from Western medicine. That's another big no-no. I'm not a huge fan of Western medicine, but it has saved some of my friends' lives. If I tore my arm off right now, you fucking rights, I would be down at the hospital letting them put it back on. I wouldn't go to like my shaman friend down the street and be like, dude, my arm got torn off. I need you to put this back on.
You wouldn't put terps on it?
Just a few terps. Call Tony up. Be like, dude, what cultivar should I be putting on my arm?
When your arm gets ripped off, you have to drink the terps.
You gotta rub some of that tussin on there.
But some tussin, a little tussin.
Rub a little tussin.
Yeah, that's awesome. Little Chris Rock.
Yeah, but Marcus, balance that with what Dr. David Allen says, who believes that the discovery of the endocannabinoid system is going to save more people than sterile surgical method. So
yes,
you would need sterile surgical method to sew back your arm, but he, and again, David's a bright guy, and I really value his opinion. I think that he could be true someday.
Yeah,
but can I throw this out there? Every single wonderful thing that Rick Simpson oil has ever potentially done for anybody who's ever consumed it only happened because of the cannabinoids that were left in the oil after the extraction. It's just about cannabinoids, right?
Of course.
So it doesn't matter
100%.
If they take some of the dry seed and dump it in their hemp seed oil, mix it up and take that. There you have an activated great oil. You could use that. I mean, without any of the nasties, so and the more I thought about it, it's funny, Tony, I thought about you more and more with Prana, because until people get their hands on a consistent product, they will not get a consistent remedy.
Yeah,
I know Tony wasn't asking for it, but a tour in his place and seeing what they're doing up there with Prana is a strictly patient advocate, and someone who's a science nerd at the same time. I was frankly blown away at what I see going out of some of those products, and that's where education is critical, because they're not all the same. People want to know. It's like, well, hey, I can get this 30 ml jar of CBD hemp from China. It's only $15. That's going to be great. They don't understand that there's a world of difference in what is being produced from these, really quality medical companies who are out to see health, and just a line, which I would say is the majority, a line of people who just are able to grow cannabis. They've got a hot plate and some olive oil, and they're just like, I want to get on this train, and it's really, really risky out there for some people. And I think that's what, Todd was referring to with his post, and I saw it right away. But people, I think, who don't have the hands-on experience with patients understand how important and sensitive of an issue this is. You don't just jump in and start playing doctor with patients.
Yeah, the metaphor is quite strong in the sense of, once again, going back to the connoisseur, when you get people that are OCD like Tony, myself, Skunkman Sam, different levels to this thing where you take it to the most intense level. And then you get people that are business people that are like, I'm going to get involved in this business. They're selling this Chinese CBD oil. It's the equivalent of like swag Mexican molded out weed compared to like super high grade greenhouse Cali grown perfection. That's the difference. It's like you've got people who have never used the product. They don't even understand the relationship of cannabinoids, terpenes, using it in their own body, knowing people and sharing it with them and watching the results. Because that's, I mean, really how this all started was through civil disobedience, through finally understanding, wait, we know this can help people. Well, then it has to help people. And that's why Hillary started the BC Compassion Club back in 1997, inspired by Valerie and Todd and a lot of the people down in California who were pushing the boundaries there already. It was civil disobedience, we weren't all scientists and doctors in the beginning. That took a long time for those people to get on board, because 20 plus years ago, it was just less and less, the few that you had, you really held tight.
Just talking about standardization, I think is the most important part of the industry now. And when it comes to fighting these diseases like cancer, like neighbor Michael, having the same consistency of cannabinoids over and over, and not just randomly taking whatever comes to you from these clubs, like with Piranha and stuff. That consistency and standardization is what helped me every day to be able to control my pain and know what to deal with. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. Just taking something random, you're not getting that consistency. So when you're dealing with any kind of injury or disease, you need standardization in order to fight what you're dealing with.
I totally agree with that too. And I mean, I think it's really frustrating for people that have real medical conditions. And when I say real, I mean really deliberating, really messing up their day, causing them to not be able to work right, and interrupting their time with their family and their loved ones. And unless you can give them something that is of consistent dosage, really, you're just got them chasing their tail. One bag of pot might work, one bag of pot might not. One brick of hash might be great. The next one didn't touch it at all. And I mean, this is why when I was at Tony's place and I was looking at all the Piranha packages and thinking, it's not just getting it consistent, it's putting a clean product into that in the first place so that you can trust the product isn't potentially contaminated this package and it wasn't last package. And we really need this kind of ethics moving into this industry, or this industry is going to look like shit, in my opinion.
That's medicine.
Look like the clowns that are around yelling loudly, hey, come use my backyard product.
We got to be able to have it. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that's why we're setting these standards in the first place. People that have been involved in this industry for 10 and 20 and 30 years, and now realizing that's why Advesa was born, Tony's newest company that runs this lab. It was born to take care of these three brands, of Piranha, of Blue River, and powered by Bubbleman brand. So this is a long sort of like many roads coming at different angles to get to the Advesa lab, which to me as well is next level. It is setting the bar high.
I think the cannabis, one of the biggest mistakes in, to oversimplify, the cannabis community could make is to have the same lack of tolerance for discussion and challenging ideas as we see in all other aspects of society right now. The whole left, right, politics, craziness. If we have that same approach to where new information comes out or challenging ideas come out and we just shut it down because it might actually criticize something that has to do with cannabis, as opposed to hear it and listen and adapt, and then we're doing the whole cause a disservice. I mean, new information comes out. It turns out that cannabis it relates to a system in the body that might be one of the most important medical discoveries in our lifetime, and we now have some responsibilities that come along with it. no doubt about it, right? So if we can't even talk about that, then we're going to step into the same traps that others have, traps that we've criticized other industries for having. We've criticized the cannabis community for a long time, has criticized the pharmaceutical community rightfully for their disgusting actions of putting these ridiculous amounts of profits ahead of people's lives. And if they can't afford it, they're shit out of luck and they're on their ass, right? Yet now we're faced with some of those same ethical challenges now that we are holding one of the most beneficial plants for potential medicine that our society has seen in our lifetime, our parents' lifetime, and vice versa. And now we're getting the science to understand it. And without being able to challenge how we approach it and adapt and change some of those habits, we're going to step into the same traps that we criticize others of putting people's lives ahead of profits, of hiding life-saving, information, when really this is something that is a part of our human experience. Cannabis is like part of our culture in our lives, and if we start to try to funnel it into the same money-making traps that we have with other things, then we're just going to be hypocrites in the community. And if we can't make points like Todd made this week, or talk about some of the points you make about strains and clones, and just strike some balance, there's balance in there. It's not all give it away, it's not all keep it. But if we're not able to have that discussion as we evolve, then how are we any different than some of these other communities we've been criticizing for decades?
And I want to be honest and say that I think we need to protect people in our community who are honestly not with a lot of money and that aren't in a situation of really being strong enough to see through a lot of the bullshit, that we're seeing. I mean, I really take issue with people like Simpson, because, he's out there pushing his $39.95 book, and he's, buy my book. And if he really cared about people, the information would be free. The day I released my book, How to Grow Medical Marijuana, I gave it away free on the internet at the exact same time, because it's really not about making money. It was about reaching people. And I wish other people would see that too. If you really want to help people, don't stand there trying to sell them something that's really not even that informative. Go ahead, Sam.
The truth, Todd. I released it on PDF 5 minutes before you released it to the public.
Yes.
And all I could say to that is thank you. I'm glad the world got to see it. Now I got to make another one. But, we really should be really questioning the motives of others. I mean, when the FDA tested a lot of that CBD products, they found out that almost half of the products being sold did not even have CBD in them.
Yep.
So really it's buyer beware now, and we can't trust what's on the package. We need to know the source is truthful too. And the reality is that we need more people in this industry that have ethics, and the ones that don't have ethics, I almost think that we need to point them out. We need to get them out of the way, because if somebody's selling a CBD product that doesn't even have CBD in it, and somebody uses it, it's of course not going to work. But they're going to feel like cannabis doesn't work because it didn't work for them, when in the reality, there was no cannabis in the product that they even tried. And then that discredits all of us.
That's happening now with some of the biggest brands in the country. I just tested probably the biggest kids CBD trusted brand in the country, and I sent it for a full cannabinoid and a full terpene profile, and it came back with nothing. Not a terpene, not a cannabinoid,
Jesus.
Nothing. It was nothing but carrier oil, which I don't even know what it was.
We need to call them out. Those companies are a discredit to the cannabis community. They're a discredit to cannabis. They're hustlers, and they should be locked up. Those people are fucking with people's lives by putting
$189 for a 30 ml dropper.
What was the concentration of cannabinoids supposed to be?
They didn't say. See, the thing is,
higher than zero.
It says hemp extract, hemp extract everyday plus medicine, and I looked on their website. I couldn't find anything, and I have parents using this, so we ordered some and tested it, and there was just nothing in it. So they don't, and a lot of those products don't tell you what's in them. Some of them have CBD or other cannabinoids, and some don't. But that's another way that they're manipulating that I really am strongly against, is that controlling their patient group through omission, right? They don't teach them what they're getting. They say, I don't want you to know how many milligrams you're dosing. We're going to say, take this many drops, right? Or take this much ml, without any of the information on the package, so that people get dependent on having to come back to their brands just through a lack of education. And then some of those have nothing in them.
Well, listen, we are glad here at, we are glad here at Hash Church to weekly release the new list of companies that are doing this, because honestly, what's the worst case scenario? They're going to try to sue us if the work's been done, and it's not just calling a company out. There's been tests done. We have no problem.
No, the worst thing they can do is make us take their products and use them.
Yeah, right? I'll come here and share the name. I had it tested, and it's such a big company that I'm sending it to Steep Hill Labs for a second round of tests just to make sure there
Good
wasn't
call.
some sort of fluke. And if it comes back the exact same, I will come right on here and share with you who it is, because it needs to be national news, frankly. It's
Yeah.
just unacceptable.
When I went to the Cannabis Liberation Park in Amsterdam today, to the festival, there were 6 companies selling CBD oils of various types, and I was really curious about them all. But if I had an up and running GC, I would have got them and ran the samples. But I don't have a running GC, and yeah, I'm really curious.
I would almost, though, be less suspicious of the CBD in Europe because of the long-standing hemp farms that have been growing, and the fact that Germany has been doing CO2 extraction of hemp, to my knowledge, for over a decade for companies like Hemp Flax. So I'm sure there's a lot of companies sourcing very legitimate CBD from even Ben's farm, for instance, because that stuff's going somewhere. And they have it by the metric ton.
But one of the problems is that when they press the oil through the cold press, they get these small amounts of CBD that contaminate the oil. And I think it's where the CBD oil really...
CO2. It's supercritical CO2 extraction.
Right, but I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about is this. Hemp oil is made with a cold press, okay? The cold press squishes the seed, and cannabinoids that are in the hemp, CBD, goes into the oil. It's in a very, very, very low percent, but I think it's how these oils started getting sent over borders and people thinking, oh, CBD is fine to send over the border. They're doing it out of Europe. They're doing it out of Canada. There's this oil, but it's not a CBD extract at all.
I'll tell you what happened. It's because you know what?
Serious snake oil salesman.
It was back in 1998. The DEA stopped a shipment of hemp seeds coming out of Canada because they were contaminated with cannabinoids. Hemp seed oil itself does not have any cannabinoids in it.
No, but calyxes do.
Well, what would happen though is so the hulls would scrape against the oils on the external part of the hemp plant, which would contaminate the oil. So the Hemp Industries Association sued the DEA and technically won, saying that a small amount of natural contamination is part of the process.
That's what I'm saying.
It has to be overlooked.
And that's what the original CBD oil was.
Well, it's not so much it was CBD oil. CBD was one of the, it was the most predominant cannabinoid in hemp. So it was the most predominant contaminant in the oil, if this makes simple sense.
It's 100% makes simple sense. It's exactly what I'm saying. When you lower the THC so much, like the Ukrainians did, or for that matter, any of the groups that did it, there's only so many other cannabinoids that are going to be left over, and CBD seems to be one that is prevalent, at least in Zolotanocha and Compolti and other varieties.
Have you guys seen a weird little thought though? It almost CBD proves that prohibition is a mental prohibition more than it's a real prohibition, because those of us who look at cannabinoids understand CBD is a cannabinoid. Cannabinoids is Schedule 1. Schedule 1's illegal, yada yada. But these people that want to believe that it's not legal have been shipping this stuff all over the place, and it makes me wonder if the drug war is more of a battle of our imagination than it is a battle of our reality.
No, I think that one of the things that's not being talked about with this stuff overseas, have you guys seen it? You can get like a gallon now. It's called CBD oil. It's great. You can get it by the gallon. I've caught a couple companies when I asked them and start to question what they're making and what their process is they're not even growing it anymore. There's like, no, we just get it by the gallon from these companies overseas and slap a label on it and sell it here in the United States. And that's happening more and more commonly. We're seeing that quite a bit, especially here in California. We see it a lot when the test results all start to look the same, looks the same, smells the same, almost nothing in it. And it's what it is they're just buying this bulk quote unquote CBD oil by the gallon and just slapping a label on it for, because it's at $150 a bottle and go from there.
Listen, anytime they call it CBD anything, my spider sense goes off. I'm just like, why are you calling it that unless it's a monomolecular, like you've if purified it into crystalline? Sure, okay, that's a CBD product.
And now you could buy that. I think you could buy that in bulk.
You can. You can.
Most of the products that I see out there, I mean, I hope I'm not in the minority, have certificates of analysis that says what the bag of powder analyzes for.
Yeah.
And so I don't know that those have to be, again, retested again to make sure that you didn't get some bad result. But to me, if it's crystalline, what you can do is take a little bit of the material, get yourself a melting point apparatus, and see at which point it melts. If it's CBD and it melts at the right point, then you know it's pretty pure.
Indeed. You've been quiet, Tony. What's going on over there? You muted?
Can
Oh,
you
he
hear
is
me?
muted. Oh, now I can hear you. Yes.
You can hear me.
Yeah.
There we go.
We haven't heard you yet.
No, I was on the other phone actually talking to a patient. So, but I was interested in that conversation and wanted to add a few things to that. So, when people manufacture products, and you look at, let's say, California versus Colorado, you're still on the honor system in California for putting like test results. And so, you know, think about that as a manufacturer. Even though we're on an honor system, everything that I manufacture, we do like a bulk $2,500 a month for SC Labs just for prana. We have to test the flowers for obviously potency, terpenes, but pesticides and powdery mildew are like a no. And a couple of people on this panel know that from me because I've worked with you. And like the second if somebody says, oh, we've got this Harlequin 1-to-1, I was like, oh, the first thing I say to you, I don't even care about the potency anymore. I'm like, oh, did it pass pesticides or does it have PM or test for anything like that? Because once you take that flower and you make a medicine and you concentrate it, let's say, into a pill or a tincture, and then you just put it out to the public, you're given a privilege right now to be able to help people. And when you think about it, and it's supposed to be medicine and it's a not-for-profit in California, it's supposed to be helping people. So if you give them a product that isn't labeled, doesn't have a dose on it, and is full of poison, are you really helping anyone? You're just hurting the situation. So if a manufacturer in this time is not voluntarily putting their test results on all of their actual end products, so I test the batch of the flower and the end product and put that batch number and the test result on each box and each product itself. If they're not doing that in a volunteer state, think about how hard it's going to be for them to do it when they have to do it regulated. So those are already things that I would have red flags for if there's any kind of product out there that doesn't have their batch number and the results on it. Because
and we agree with you, Tony. If people are manufacturing for sale to other people, especially patients, don't they deserve this at the least? Of course, it has to be proven to be safe before it can be sold in commerce. That should be the way it is. Right. And anybody who has any soul will do it that way, but not everybody.
Yeah, and part of what this is talking about is before we're even talking about dosing or effectivity, we're talking about making sure the product that we're handing to people to go and experiment on themselves with is clean.
Right. And this is what we've seen here in Berkeley with the testing is that, we have decided to do it ourselves, and we saw that not everybody else was doing it. So we got the law passed in the city. So now everybody in the city is doing it. So we're all held to the same standards. And I'm thankful for Prana and other, manufacturers that are trying to do it right now, because you will have a place in the future market. Because if you're doing it half-assed now and fucking around and, not doing it properly from the get-go, you're wasting your time in the future, because it's going to be completely regulated, because it's no longer the city that's going to blackball you, it's the state. And once you're blackballed by the state, you're done.
There will be talented people who can step up to the batter box and follow the rules.
Well,
and they will test the entire time. So don't think you can get by on one batch or one thing. Like Prana, you have to do it properly every single time. And it's very expensive. I have to test everything I have. So I have contracts with 3 different labs to, and it costs me hundreds of thousands of dollars to test. But it's the right thing to do, because we as patients have to take care of ourselves in the absence of these types of regulations. If we're patients really wanting to help each other, we go to these types of expenses processes. But
and you guys have a very high standard, I know, even on the full melt side. About there's someone that we work with, I think, that's been on here, Dank Duchess, before. We just had this conversation because I was helping her dry her hash with the freeze dryer and explaining getting the water out, that process. I know a lot of people knock on freeze dryers, but if you use it properly, the idea is getting the water away from the resin as fast as possible. And with subcritical sublimation, basically, as it's colder, you're pulling it and the water's expanding and it's gently coming off. She just went through your whole testing and she was terrified. She was like, oh, they said 9 out of 10 is going to fail this. And I said, yeah, you're right. 9 out of 10 hash makers will fail this, and water hash can be dangerous too. That, if you don't get the water,
especially if you're pressing and breaking those heads and rubbing them all into themselves.
Oh my God!
Oof.
To be truthful, that's been my biggest problem with water hash the whole way through, is because unless I'm making it myself, I don't trust it coming from other people because I'm not sure if they know how to dry it and handle it correctly.
Yeah.
I like when it looks like powder like this. Like it's just, I know it's dry. I trained this person. I know he knows how to dry hash, but if I get it and it's already pressed and in a piece, I'm more like, I came from the mentality of starting the bubble bags and bubble hash and coming out with this sort of helping popularize water hash. I wanted it to be different from what was known as hash. And it was really, to me, I looked at the hash market and I thought, okay, let's see. They're pressing it for two main reasons: to adulterate it, to put things in it that are not glandular trichome heads, and then to move it around the world, to smuggle it. It's hard to leave in big giant bags of powder. They usually press it down. So I'm not opposed to people enjoying their pressed hash, but for me, I want to see the hash be powder. I love that about sift and bubble hash, that I can see micro encapsulated resin heads and I can know without a shadow of a doubt of what it is. I don't have to guess if it's been pressed together. I've seen some beautiful hash pressed, don't get me wrong, but I really prefer it come to me as a powder, and then I can press a little piece if I like.
I think, Todd, you made a great point, is that, that's one of the main reasons why I was very, until testing things like that, was very skeptical as well. And it would only make my own water hash or around people where I watch them actually make it, because I think everybody can attest. I think you've seen more ruined water hash than you've seen perfect water hash.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I used to see so much. People used to show me water hash and I'd then crack it open under my nose and be like, what do you think? And I'd be like, I think it's going bad. I think it's moldy.
Worst smell, right?
Oh, just the funk.
Turned funk. Oh, that's
funk. Listen, and I'm responsible.
And that's not the UK cheese type of funk,
No, not the.
You're like, ooh, that's the spicy under the armpit foot.
It's not the
behind
good.
the back.
Smells wrong.
It smells wrong. It smells wrong on your nose.
I will take responsibility for the first few years.
I wonder what mold terps are. What do you think about that, Scaldone?
Mold terps?
Like what when something goes moldy, what's that terp?
Oh no, it just degrades into lower molecular weight shit like sulfides, Sulfate reducing bacteria makes sulfide. That's sewer gas. I mean,
that's what smells like.
So it's a sulfur type of
sewer gas.
So things can go literally rank, just like food.
Rank and dank.
And that's why it's important that, like, when you go, like when I go food shopping, I'm like, oh, brown rice sprouted vegan cereal. The first thing I do is I see this name, I see this whole thing, and I turn the box around. I have to read everything in it. So it's like we're, especially with cannabis, like that's what anyone would want. They want to read the label. What's in it?
It's definitely good to be able to read the label.
But wouldn't you think, again, like medically compromised patients especially should be tuned into this through their patient provider, their caregiver, that, you shouldn't just be ordering these willy-nilly oils off the internet. You should be insisting on certificates of analysis and potency, so you actually know like what's in a formulated product. And I know dozens of companies, Tony, you know them too. They all have every product I've ever seen at a dispensary, every product that I've ever seen that's been released for public sale has got a label on it with pesticide testing results and cannabinoid testing results. It's just where the industry has gotten. And the consumer, I think, is wise enough to be able to insist on that. And that's when they're paying high dollar at a dispensary for a medicated product. But, you know, if it's a life and death situation, you would think that that would be a really important factor in making a choice.
Some of them are wise enough. I mean, you get these people who are coming into the industry just because their kids are sick and they're coming out of like soccer camp and don't know anything about cannabis and just heard this might save their kids. Those folks are ripe for the slaughter. I mean, they'll believe what they're kind of told, and they don't know anything other than they heard CBD on CNN. You know,
well, can I point this out? My mom didn't give it to me until I had cancer in soft tissue between my left lung and my heart, and I was dying. You know, and that was the 9th time in 8 years that I'd had it, and it'd taken her that long to get around to passing me her joint. I mean, so people are doing this at the desperate end of their, this is the last thing they can think of doing. They're desperate. A lot of them have gone through Western medicine. They come home crying. Their kids are not responding. And realistically, they're in very vulnerable positions. And, you know, I see it, I feel it, because I was the kid in the family watching my mom have breakdowns.
And they're the ones that I get the complaints about, and the upset family member after that person has died because they believed this bullshit that they were told. And they are the absolute victims, unfortunately, or more and more of these snake oil salesmen. And because they just want to do the right thing, they think they're doing the right thing because of limited access to information. And that is the worst, and that is the most painful thing to hear, is the after effect is that it's too late. This person's already died, and that whatever they had didn't work, and they had this belief until their dying day because they were told this thing and they held it to their belief that it was their savior. And this is where we need science and where I thank science for absolutely destroying the rest of that misinformation.
May I say this, though? You know, one of my biggest problems with misinformation, and let's take it, for instance, is the Rick Simpson hemp oil people, is because hemp seed oil that you get at your Whole Foods store that comes out of a hemp seed that actually is full of essential fatty acids that also activate your endocannabinoid system, and that all of us should be advocating that everybody uses on a daily, is not the same as the oil that we get when we either superglue critically extract the cannabinoids and terpenes from little resinous heads, or use a different solvent such as alcohol, butane, propane, or even a dry sift screen and collect just the resin heads. I mean, this oil is the cannabinoid oil. The other oil is the healthy EFA oil that comes from the seeds, and they're not the same. You know, and I think a lot of people seem to get confused that hemp oil and hemp seed oil are the same when they absolutely have nothing to do with each other, but they're both really, in a sense, working towards the same way, because you have an endocannabinoid system, we all do, that could not well be working that great because we're not getting EFAs into our diet like we should. And if we're not consuming essential fatty acids, there's a reason why if the fatty acids are called essentials, our cannabinoid system will not work properly. So then we come along and find the oil, the pot, we use that, and it mimics these endocannabinoids that our body's not producing correctly, and we feel better. But if we could boost ourselves naturally, if we would start using hemp seed oil on a daily and boosting our ability to actually make endocannabinoids naturally, internally on our own, we may well find we need less cannabis because we will balance ourselves out. And we need to start talking about the two different oils that hemp makes, cannabis makes, because that's really where health lies. You know, it's in nutrition and it's in medicine, and they're two different things that I think people confuse, and I just wanted to bring that up.
Yeah, and to add to that on the nutrition side, think about everything that we put into our body and what the human body goes through. So when you guys were talking about dosing and what one cannabinoid would do to another, we actually track all of our patients, so I get like pretty good looks at the data of different patient bases when you start seeing things in 1,000 or 10,000. And what I noticed that affects the different types of dosing besides age, because there's definitely a significant difference between, you know, somebody under the age of say 12, and I look at hormones, you know, so if there's a child They haven't gone through this hormone change that adults have gone through. And cannabinoids seem to affect them in lower dosages for a lot more results, meaning just like when you take other medicine and said, oh, if you're under the age of 12, don't exceed this amount. If you're an adult, you can take this many pills, Benadryl as an example. And same thing with cannabis. I find with that data mining that you see under 12, they have a different response to adults. And then the endocannabinoid system actually evolves with that age. So it's different from when we're young and when we're adult and then when we're a senior. So if we're 55 plus or 65 plus, the system has evolved with you and has changed. And your response to different things has to do with your life that you lived. So in a sense, if you've lived a life that some patients would say, well, I've been on fentanyl for 8 years, right? A fentanyl patch, or I've been on this particular chemical or synthetic substance. This has a profound effect of staining or leaving footprints on the endocannabinoid system. And so what Todd's saying, and the nutrition's important about the things that we put in our body. And this is something that we also promote on our programs with nutritional guides of pH balanced foods, is trying to eat a diet that doesn't cause inflammation. Because when you compile stress and inflammation with synthetics and chemical drugs, they leave very hard impressions or plaque on our system. And so you'll find with some adults that are 65 plus, they can't even touch THC because their mind goes crazy. They have they're super sensitive to THC. And it's not so much that they're sensitive to THC or cannabis, it's because the life they lived, and it's because of the precursor of what might have been there. So I think the best part of this plan is that we can personalize it, and we can personalize medicine once we start breaking them down into categories of terpene profiles, chemotypes, and their cannabinoid profiles. And that's, some of you like Forrest and Todd have seen like what I was doing with Prana, and that's what I was trying to provide as a way to personalize it, because from a young age to an adult, you have different scenarios that affect people's lives. I've had seniors that were 75 plus that could take 300-400 milligrams a day using our non-active during the day and non-active at night, taking large doses when they had tumor or cancer, and they had combination therapy with chemo, went into remission, didn't have any post-chemo neuropathy, was able to sleep. It was a complementary immune and central nervous system type of boost supplement that allowed them to go into remission and recover faster, not have as much chemo brain. It was a very good neuroprotective, and they didn't feel it. So each person is completely different based on how their life has kind of been lived and what they've gone through. So I think that if people start looking at the plant and its potential of how it can help people, it's an unlimited resource that has barely been tapped, that we act like we know a lot of, and I promise you in the next 20 and 50 years we'll learn so much more, and we will be using it to help all kinds of ailments, almost every kind of ailment.
Question? Sam, in all your reading you've done, have you done any reading that talks about a person's age and digestibility of cannabinoids? Because I know from reading the Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding, we have 3 body types. And I was wondering if as we age, if we digest the cannabinoids differently or absorb them differently.
We really concentrated on what the plant did and what it was capable of and what it could do. We never really looked into what it did with humans. Although when we first collected our materials and we bred a CBD variety, that was more than 20 years ago, we did find that the material, we sent some off to Brazil, high CBD material, and I think they extracted and made it pure. It was really super helpful for psychotic patients. It reduced psychotic incidences. That was our first use, and we were trying to help somebody, so we got some of our material, our CBD variety, and supplied them with the ground up material so they could extract the CBD and use it for this test. They're psychotic patients, and it was successful.
The root of my question was that I wonder, as our bodies change, that it's a natural progression with aging, and the way we digest foods becomes, our metabolism becomes slower over time. If, in a sense, what you're also saying, Tony, is that somebody that's older would have a slower metabolism naturally, just simply because of their age, and their dosing would have to be adjusted because a child would have a faster.
Correct.
And also it depends on the child, because a child can be one of 3 body types as well right off the start.
Right.
You know?
And on top of that, the metabolites and how they're processing that is one, but also, so the dosing is interesting. So with someone, say 65 plus, that's never tried cannabis before, that has a little neuropathy, trouble sleeping, and wants overall well-being, and you study the pharmacokinetic studies that are out there on microdosing, you find that the 1.5, 2 milligram dosages to 4 milligram dosages for that age group has a significant impact. We're talking small little dosages of either THCA or a 3-to-1 non-active or a little bit of active CBD and CBN. You know, it becomes almost like a supplement for them that helps perhaps speed up their metabolism, or somehow create cannabinoids, and it helps them with cognitive function and general well-being.
Well, can I say this? Did you see the Kevin McKernan slide, Tony, that had the brain growth? And he showed it was a 4 milligram treatment plan. And I think the good news is that it seems like
that was actually Dr. Deb Kimless. I think just Kevin posted a picture of it, but it was Deb Kimless's talk that slide was taken from.
Really a low dose is what struck me, though, and I was thinking that really I wonder if it's just a low dose that really activates our endocannabinoid system. So so
I just want to mention, just so we can ground this discussion in what's known in reality, is the placebo effect is a real thing, and it really does happen. It really does show the magic of the human body itself that can almost cure it.
I think most clinicals are 50%. 50% placebo.
The reason why double-blind trials are done at multiple doses in FDA trials is, again, to try to wash out that, to be contributing to any of the patients getting any better. And I don't know how to describe it, and I'm not an expert at it, but I can just tell you that there's a huge body of literature that can say that even placebo would, in this case, would just be like an olive oil tablet would be given to a patient, as opposed to olive oil plus cannabis. I mean, this has to be conducted, and it has to be done in a statistically valid way, so we can start to see, you know, does this microdosing really have the impact that we think, or is it, again, just a placebo effect where you can, you know, just basically give anything? But I wanted to go back to something I think that Forrest had touched on earlier, which was especially with epileptic patients. I think that there's a notion, again, that CBD is the magic bullet for epilepsy, and it totally is not, especially when you consider the prevalence of CB1 receptors in the central human nervous system. And certainly if you're talking about like trying to shut down grand mal seizure, I mean, a microdose is not going to do it. You almost need to flood those receptors, get it there immediately in the most effective, quickest vehicle possible. Now, I've seen it with my own eyes. A young girl undergoing a convulsive seizure, get a few drops of oil and basically stop. The seizure stops, which tells you, it shows you the molecular recognition at that level in our bodies, how starved her body is for it. This is a CBD oil. It's shutting down anandamide destruction by inhibiting the enzyme that regulates anandamide. So her body is right at that tipping point to where she can get just a little drop of oil and automatically just stop seizuring. So yeah, it is quite amazing. I just wanted to mention the placebo effect and the reason why double-blind clinical trials are absolutely necessary.
No, I agree with that, especially when, and that was something that I discussed with Mark when we went down to Jamaica to begin with, is studying the different effects under that. And at first, when you listen to how people study that, I would say that the community understands that there could be up to 50% placebo effect that's out there on people's medicine, which is crazy.
30 to 40 is what they say. 50 is kind of high, but
yeah.
But 30 to 40% of your
that's high. Yeah. So that tells you, well, that tells you how strong the mind is. Because if the mind believes something, it's actually going to work. So because the patient's like, well, whatever you gave me, I don't care if it's, you know, long as grinded up ginger and cinnamon.
Like a doctor in a white outfit and a pill bottle, and they feel it's coming from, you know, again, reputable studies. Again, I guess when you're running clinical trials, it's one of those things where, and maybe Todd can speak to this, you know, how would you like to be the cancer clinical trial kid that gets placebo? You know, I mean, it would suck, right? I mean, so I don't know how.
There's actually a case study where they were giving kids in that situation, some were getting cannabinoids and some were getting a placebo, and the kids that were getting the cannabinoids reacted so positively to it that the people conducting the test hit an ethics wall and realized that they could not go forward, not giving the other children what was obviously helping the other half of the study. And anyone can look it up. I can't remember which one it was off the top of my head.
Right. So that was
Shulam tells that story.
Yes, that was a Shulam study in Israel, and what they found is what they were trying to do was to reduce nausea in children, in young children that were getting chemotherapy. And as you know, getting chemotherapy is horrible, and getting kids is even worse. And so they found complete control, and so she switched it to an open study and just gave all the kids cannabis oil and found that it completely blocked nausea. That was.
Could you put a link of that in Hash Church when you get a chance, Mark? Yeah. You know, I know I'd read it.
You know, I'm thinking that anecdotally from
I can tell
Shulam's movie.
I can tell you when I first got into this industry that you have skeptics, parents, and relatives and friends, and that's the first thing they all say is about the placebo effect, right? And it's valid. You know, it's valid, and sometimes you have these profound experiences yourself. But as when Forrest shows you videos, right, of children that couldn't possibly have they couldn't have this placebo. They don't even know about placebo.
Right.
They're not even developed into a point where this is reality. And when you see, like you're talking about with groups of studies of kids, and you see profound changes with this plant, then you have to understand. Then you'll truly understand the value of what we haven't even tapped. And so the scary part of all this is, you remember how people, how the oil wars were fought? Look who controls all the drilling and all the oils on the coast and in our country. And look at all the wars that are fought over it. And look how much money was made from oil, and look how essential oil is. And it's in cars and everything. And as we turn from that, and we all start to change the way that our cars are built and the ways things move, virtual water and essentials will become the future of wars. And I could unfortunately see this, us having finally getting our say and finally getting to a regulated state, and there becoming these political agendas and wars between synthetics and natural plants. And we might be up against a whole nother generation, a whole nother wall of forces. Maybe not, but I could see this. I could see that once people realize the potential and start really starting to go the right direction with it and researching it the right direction, developing all kinds of things that could benefit our society, it's going to become the next war. You know,
we see that, you know, the placebo effect, I think, works both ways. You know, I've seen people completely convince themselves that nothing's going to help, and they kind of live in pain and suffer. And I've seen, people who knows, maybe it's the wanting for it to be successful. For me, it doesn't really matter, because if they're taking something that's non-toxic and safe and good for them and it works, whether it's the placebo or not, their quality of life is improved. But you're absolutely right with these children that we primarily focus on. They don't even understand what's going on. I mean, they don't know that they're getting medicine for certain things. Silas doesn't necessarily know if he's having seizures. Excuse me. So, there are some videos you can look on Silas's page of others. I typically post videos of my own kids, not the others we work with, just for privacy reasons. But there's one on, if you go to Silas' story, there's the cannabis rescue nasal spray that we make. We've completely been able to give up using Ativan and different benzodiazepines as far as rescues. And that's what a lot of people don't realize they're given for these seizures. They're rectal injections of heavy doses of benzos, or they're sublingual, right? So you're literally chewing pills of Ativan, or they're a medicine called Versed, which is another benzo sprayed up the nose.
And just so we're clear about benzos real quick, the hardest type of patient out of all the ones that we see are the benzo recovery patients, the ones trying to get off benzo because it destroys GABA receptors. Yep. And these are a whole nother group of receptors that I can tell you that cannabis, when used in someone that's been on benzos for a long time, can have a very, sometimes, I guess you could say, scary effect with psychosis and different things, nightmares and really strange things. And so those type of patients are the hardest to help with cannabis. So there's damage that's almost, it's not, you can't change it. And so I'm sure Mark could talk more about benzos. I just want everyone to understand what that is.
There's been shown.
I have a question for you, Forrest.
Sure.
Forrest, before we get away from it, you really intrigued my attention with your thing. So you have a rescue inhaler for epileptic children. Can you talk a little more about that?
Well, it's not magic, and there's some guys we've been threatened to be sued because some companies are really excited about selling this life-saving drug to families, which I think is ridiculous. So excited that the fact that we make one has nothing to do with theirs and donate it to free for families is they're afraid it's going to cut in on their profit margin, or worse, have us just educate families that they can, have some access to making some of these things themselves if they don't have a good company who's making one near them. But essentially, the concept you talked about as far as putting the sublingual dose for seizures, we found was effective, and we use that a lot for children. There is some videos going around with kids, and I know that family, they're a good family, of rolling it on the feet. I like to try everything. I didn't see in my own experience any efficacy with that sort of, and there's nothing in my understanding of biology and how the body works that would be able to get it through the epidermal layer, through the brain in time to do that, but we won't go into that.
But it feels cool.
Essentially, we just want to get it to the nerves as quickly as possible. And there's nerves up there in the brain, right, that you can get through via the nose. So essentially, we took 0.1 ml sprayer, right, and we dosed it out at about 5 milligrams THC per 0.1 ml spray. And we just used the thinnest oil we could find, and Tony and I've had this talk, and I know it's being worked on. The real advancement in this is going to be when we get some water soluble and more appropriate sort of ways of getting it in there. But we just simply using a thin oil, defractionated coconut or something else, we're able to then use a spray. And I have a video. I can't share it for those of you watching on YouTube. It won't let me share links. But I can share it for you guys here, I believe. There it is, of Silas himself using it. And it, on average, it's 20 to 45 seconds max, and the grand mal stops. And for Silas, that's really important because even though we've lowered his seizure totals down from about 2,500 to about 12, the seizures he does have are still pretty intense. He doesn't breathe. Yeah, go ahead, Marcus. And so we got to end him as quickly as possible because he turns gray and is not breathing. And what we do is, for us, it's 2 sprays in each nostril, and the seizures stop. So here it is. So this is Silas. This is a seizure that he's having at his respite care center. And so that's a myoclonic spasm right there, what you see. Silas has these hybrid seizures And there are these hybrids of mild, clonic, and complex partials. So you'll see his arms jerk up and his body tense, and then he wants to kind of run. And the reason it looks like they're holding him is because, well, they are, because he'll run and he's not really conscious and he's at high risk of injury. So there's a mild clonic spasm. And then when it clutches him, then it goes into a tonic-clonic seizure. So luckily you can't hear it because the sound is horrible. He screams and does these horrific screams. But even in his care center, these are nurses. They have been so impressed with the cannabis medicine. Now, here he is not breathing, that they've stopped giving the Ativan as well and have been able, through the Department of Health, be allowed to give the rescue spray. So here's the rescue spray that we make at home. Okay, so she's putting the 2 drops or 2 squeezes in each nostril. And right there, if you can't see the clock, but I start the clock, and it's about 20 seconds, and the seizure stops. And without that, we also, you can't, the sound really changes too. You can start to hear him breathe, which we can't hear here. And the intensity decreases. And within about 20 seconds, the seizure completely stops. And, it's saved my son's life. And this is where I try to say, we got to strike balance. If your only business model is a life-saving medication, I mean, there is such a huge marketplace out there to be threatening to sue people and to want to price gouge something that is literally only used to save kids' lives. This is something, last time I was on Hash Church, we talked about. I think it's a real moral and ethical challenge. We're going to have to decide, what do we want to do? Do we want to be one of the greatest forces for good and social good, along with taking advantage of all the other entrepreneurial opportunities, or do we want to step into the same trap of just how much can we suck out of, the sick and desperate? And I think with these terminally ill and catastrophically ill children, we're talking about 1% of the cannabis industry. That if the benefit we would get as a society from helping those people would far outweigh that 1 or 2% of the marketplace. So that intranasal spray is something that I've seen work extremely well for grand mal and tonic-clonic seizures. So for those who have kids who have different types of clusters of tonics, clusters of myoclonics, for some reason we haven't seen it be is successful, but it's something about the brain and the spasms in the tonic clonic, like you had seen. We see it work amazingly well. And for me, it's great because that is the last benzo my son ever took. The last ones we had around were just for emergency, and now we're not needing to use those anymore. And you're absolutely right about the addiction of those benzos and the change of the endocannabinoid system. And it's horrific. I've watched kids have to withdraw off of these benzos to go into the spasms of just withdrawal, like you're watching Train Spotting, but it's this 4-year-old child who's been addicted to phenobarbital and others. I mean, it's just a miracle.
You'd never give your child those drugs again if you ever saw that. That's why when we talk about like my journey when I started with accidents and oxycodone, I tell that story every time. And as an adult going through it, it's tough. As a child, it's inhumane. Shame on us for even they don't know the difference. And you're causing damage that's at the end of the day is you don't get back. And so I think that, this should be our first priority of trying to help that 1%. That's why I liked working with you when I first met you.
Yeah.
We saw eye to eye. And you also were also a shadow inspiration of why I tried to develop the water suspension with the rosin,
right,
and coming from the plant, because I was trying to find a natural oil or natural way to suspend it in a liquid that we could get into what you were talking about,
right.
So
yeah, the efficacy of those sort of products are going to skyrocket through the roof when you figure that out. And I'm glad you mentioned it. I didn't want to mention it for you, but seeing some of the work you're doing with that, to me, as a caregiver, as a father, and as an advocate for cannabis medicine, I mean, it's extremely exciting because I know firsthand the good it's going to do as that starts to get refined and nailed down. It's going to be amazing.
Well, what's the concentration again, Forrest, in the spray? Could you repeat that?
So it's important to understand that just like any what's wonderful about cannabis is that can be a little different for each person, and we can adjust that as needed. We have kids who are too sensitive to THC that we've actually seen some benefit of lower THC and other CBD and cannabinoids. But I would say the most common concentration that we found to be successful is somewhere around 5 milligrams per spray. So, you know, the math on that, I think in a 30 ml bottle, 0.1 ml sprayer, is somewhere around 1,500 cannabinoids in the bottle, if I'm correct. If someone's wrong, I'm sure they'll correct me. But yeah, you can do the math there. I believe it's about 1,500 milligrams THC in a 30 ml sprayer, and it's 0.1 ml, and you get hundreds of rescues out of that. I mean, you're doing 0.1 ml at a time.
1,500 milligrams is 1.5 grams. That's probably not right, right? Did you say 1,500 milligrams?
Yeah, 1,500 milligrams.
Yeah, 1,500 milligrams in 30 ml. That comes out to about 5 milligrams per spray. Yep.
Wow, that's quite a dose. Okay.
Well, everything we do is quite a dose, and that's why. I mean, the creams we haven't gotten into, but I work with a lot of kids with a condition called epidermolysis bullosa, and if you want to, you know, really get bummed out, but understand what suffering can look like, you know, look up these children with this condition.
You should show it.
Just literally coming off, you know.
Just show it. Just show it. It's necessary. I think they should understand what you're talking about.
Sure. I have to share my screen here? Give me
or send me the link and I'll do it.
Send it to Bubbleman.
Okay.
I've seen these videos. These videos made me cry.
So we make a topical, right? And everyone's making topicals, but yeah, this is rough, man. We're not screwing around here. If you want to get into this, I'm going to apologize right off the bat.
No need to apologize. People need to see the reality.
But this is
out there.
There's the link there. This is they call them butterfly kids, and we can skip through. You want to skip to maybe about 20 seconds in if you start to play that. And what it is these children, and these children, their skin doesn't form the proteins that keep your skin layers together, right? So we all have layers of skin. These kids' skin doesn't develop the proteins necessary to keep them bound together. So what happens is anytime they bump or scratch, they slide on one another, and it starts the blistering process. And as the blistering process happens, the layers of skin peel off, right? Anywhere that it's touched or bent, it peels off. And what you're seeing here is their bandage change. They have to change their bandages daily in order to keep the infection out. And these kids, this water is bleach water, in case anyone understands. That's how much they have to work with these kids to help keep infections down. And they typically die of staph infections or skin cancer because of the damage to their skin constantly. These children live like perpetual burn victims, like they're burned in boiling oil until they die. That's it. That's their life. And what they're being given is topical ketamine, topical morphine, Dilaudid, and they're just trying to ease their suffering. And there's an appropriate place for some of those medications, obviously, when you get into this level of suffering. But what we've found is that by using topical cannabis applications, we're actually able to deal with the pain more effective than the topical ketamines, but we have the extra bonus of cutting out the inflammation, which is allowing their skin to heal more quickly. And all of the kids that we're working with epidermolysis bullosa have now stopped all of the topical ketamines, not because it sounds cool and they just want to, but because they're no longer necessary. And we don't know what quality of life these kids can have if we can help their skin heal more quickly. And what we're seeing is that as they're not on these other medications, their whole immune system is beginning to function at a better rate, and they're having a better quality of life. Now, cannabis isn't going to cure the protein that causes this horrific condition to happen, but what it will do is allow them to have a much better and healthier quality of life and heal much more rapidly. And the topical that we have to make for them, which is what got me to brought it up, I was making it until we saw and felt we had efficacy. Because we're a donation program, I wasn't looking at the bottom line. I wasn't looking at our profit margin. And I got the test results back from our latest round, and we add in cold terpenes, we add in different types of cannabinoids in there until we got the effect we wanted to deal with inflammation and pain and modulate everything I knew that we could through the science that's available. And it comes out to about 7,000 milligrams for a 2-ounce jar, right? So if you're looking at the if this were on the market, it'd be somewhere around a $650 or $700 2-ounce jar of cream. And I'm having to send these families 8 and 16-ounce jars because they're going through so much. So there's not really, if we're applying those prices that the market is based on the prohibition level rec market to the medical needs of some of the people who I feel need it more than anybody, we're immediately bankrupting or pricing those families out of being able to get it, which is why I feel that charitable models need to and have to exist. It's not an option of just, well, they could get it if they wanted to. We need to have the ability to serve these people. And I think if we did that as a community, that's how we're going to get to see the social change in the community, see the level of good we can do as an industry.
Show them what the cream has done, though, because that's also super profound. Like, you showed me the pictures of. This was our first time we hung out, by the way. This is how deep you and I went. He was Forrest and I were like, we went way deep into how we can utilize collectives out here to help these kids. And the cream that you showed me that you guys made was unbelievable for how it was like the cannabinoid based cream.
Sure, give me a second. I'll find it and pull it up. Just give me 1 minute if we want.
Because that's the kind of thing that I'm talking about, where it's breakdown. If you're applying those type of drugs on the outside of the skin and it's breaking the immune system, they never have a chance to heal. They never have a chance to even make it. So creating a cannabinoid based natural product that can help their immune system and help with pain by not, like, benzos are bad. There's just like nothing I can say that's good about them.
Listen, when those like 300 plus pound football players were telling us, listen, the worst thing I had to go through was the benzo withdrawal. Out of everything that the guy has been through, the guy's like a tank and has been demolished for his whole career. And the thing that he's saying is the worst by far is benzos, and they're giving those to children.
Yeah, but look at those conditions. I mean, that's the most extreme conditions that these children are going through. If you can't even hold your own skin on, I mean, that's a whole other level of concern. Fucking God bless you, man. Seriously, Forrest.
Hey.
For doing what you do. I know it drove me to further cement what I do once you see the effect of positive change that you can affect. But thank you for taking it to the next level for these people. And yeah, we need more people like you in the world.
I appreciate it, man. I think that,
amen,
when we see what we can really do, and this is the transition I feel like I want to help the cannabis community understand, is we've been calling it medicine for a while, but let me help you show how extremely amazing and beneficial of a medicine it is. And this is why it brings us back to our whole discussion today, why we need standards in our conversation. Because when you understand the level of desperation, the level of illness your grow might be going to, or your product might be going to, it'll really open your eyes to the ethical implications that we're talking about. Until we have some sort of grading system as to what type of product we're making, to me, everyone has to be held to the highest standard, because you don't know who it's going to end up with. And let me share with you what some of these cannabis patients look like. And I think it's going to be an eye-opener for a lot of people. Bear with me as I'm looking up these pictures, and I'll get them to you guys here in a second.
No problem. Take your time. You can screen share once you've got them up. Gives you quite a few options for choosing a photo and whatnot. Pretty in-depth conversation today. Nice to see last few hash churches. Not that they haven't been great. I always look forward to these real conversations that go deep and can kind of open our eyes to what Forrest just mentioned, the implications of, putting cannabis out there as a medicine and who it may end up with. You might want to hold yourself to the highest level of standards that you can, and even beyond and above that, if you can find a way.
Well, you think that, and then you see that video and you see those pictures, and if that doesn't knock your soul into the dirt, I don't know what wouldn't.
Yeah.
And especially, I don't have children, and I never will, but I can't imagine as a father like you and others who have children, Dr. Sheldon, etc., or much less you, Forrest, you wouldn't even have known this if it, or be exposed to this, or wouldn't have affected that change if it hadn't have been for the unfortunate reality that was cast upon you. And thank you for not just sitting idly by and just playing, watching the train go by. Thank you for creating a whole new set of tracks and putting a train on it and fucking running it around and stopping at the next station.
Well, it gave me a really unique insight that was just different, into the cannabis medicine world, and I felt like it was an insight that once I understood the science, I felt like, one, it didn't have enough of a voice, and two, there was room there to help legitimize the work that others were doing from a perspective that they might not have themselves. And that was my mission, to legitimize the need for cannabis in our society by not allowing the horrors of some of these families to go unseen. And that's something that when people hold on to these old ideologies that are prohibitionists and cannabis is evil, that's what I'm talking about when I say we have the moral and ethical high ground. If you have an education and understand not only the nature of the suffering that's going on, but how beneficial these plants can be.
Absolutely. It makes me think of all of these cannabis cups. It makes me want to say, like, the next time a cannabis cup comes around, instead of entering it, Tony, I think that we should just donate what we would have entered to something like this. And if more people did such things, like each time a cannabis cup came around, for instance, imagine how much cream these kids would have, even from one single cup, if each person decided to donate their entry to something like this. This is as real as it gets. It just doesn't get any more real than that. It is a good idea, Chuck. It is a good idea.
Well, the whole Caladrius network is meant to just be a platform to just give the cannabis industry and those people who are in it for their business, but also want to better the society around them, to just give them a platform to do it. Mm-hmm. My belief was that people want to and they are helping through their businesses, they are helping through their organizations, the good actors, right? But just by having some sort of platform where people can say, hey, you could also do this and help these people, and we're going to set out the framework to do it, that I felt people would just line up to help, and I've been right. I mean, there is a lot of heart in the cannabis community that just needed a place to go. And that's where I saw was a gap that I could fill with a truly charitable nonprofit organization. And we really talk about ourselves as a children's organization, not a cannabis business. We're a children's organization who happens to advocate and serve children and families who, to no fault of their own, lives depend, or quality of life depends on cannabis medicine. And our goal is to take it to the people who are fighting against that, to have them really have to look at what we're doing, look at these kids, and then go ahead and debate me on what's right for protecting our communities.
Yeah, he goes to the hearings and gets involved politically too. So it's kind of hard to debate him. In California, imagine a father and someone who's going through this, and you're telling him, well, I think this is this, like, I would love Sessions to be able to talk to Forrest, and literally say to him how evil it is and how it does no good. I'd be like, this would be an interesting sit down and showdown, because it's
as well as I do, Tony, he would sit there and just absolutely just the nods and absolutely give him whatever you think you want to hear. And he's a politician and a pandering son of a bitch. That's, that's the reality that he would face. And as much as I would love that reality as well, because there's no way any type of human, or especially a parent, sees that and sees what Forrest is doing, could anywhere look them straight in the face and lie to them. It is unheard of. But as well as I do, those politicians are well practiced at that.
Remember, his oxymoron is good people don't use marijuana.
Yeah.
Right.
Ooh.
Wow.
Well, yeah. So that's why
that's our cop. Do you have those photos though? I remember?
Yeah, they're coming. I had to
email.
email them back to myself. For some reason,
Okay.
they're on my mobile devices, but I'm pulling them up right now. So I've got them coming right.
Because I do want to show people.
Yep. 1 second here. Just when you think you have everything ready, let's see, downloads.
Yeah, how could he say that? You know, that's someone just got to make a little video of like some of these kids with their element and using cannabis, clearly getting relief with that guy's voice in the background saying good people don't use cannabis. I mean,
Right. Forrest, what's your website? Do you have a website you direct
We
people
have,
to?
yeah, we have the caladriusnetwork.org, and that's CALADRIUS. You know, really, I'm just kind of a volunteer organization. It's mostly me. So it's not super fancy, but it kind of explains what we want to do, and I'm going to be building that to help our business partners and things like that get credit for the work they're doing. And really, the model is just allowing businesses to help, and then us wanting to promote social good by teaching consumers that if you help these businesses, right, if you're working with Prana, or if you're going to buy products, if you're buying Prana's brand, or if you're working with these testing labs, these are the companies who are donating back to help these kids in the community. And by the social good sort of shopping model and encouraging them to support those businesses, we're able to then make it more worth their while to then donate to causes who are helping these kids and these families who we all rightfully agree are not something that you know, necessarily should be part of our business plan, right? So okay, so I've got some pictures
saying for us. It seems that a lot of us that are affected believe in spreading the healing around and not trying to hoard it and sell it in little chunks to other people. It's almost like an obligation, I feel, once you've been really healed and you see what cannabis can do for people, you really feel a need to tell other people. It's just...
Well, I saw waste. I mean, I'm in Northern California. I mean, I know people who compost enough trim for me to save or help or improve the quality of life of 100 kids, right? So it's also about awareness, you know, kind of like we have this thing now where if you grow your hair out really long, people realize, hey, don't just throw that away. If you cut it, you can donate it to kids with cancer, right? To make a wig. We kind of have this understanding that same concept should be in our cannabis conversation as well.
Do you have a system set up where people can donate organic cannabis to you? California's legal now, and there's a lot less, you know, that anybody has to worry about.
So it's not legal in California. This is part of the law. It's actually illegal to not make money at this point. So the tax implications alone make it really hard to donate because I'm on the hook for state taxes anytime a donation is made. But again, when it comes to the lives of these kids, we're doing it anyway, you know, and I'm not shy about that. We shouldn't have to break the law to help save these guys. And I got these pictures ready that Tony wanted to see. So I will share my screen here. Well, if someone, maybe I won't. There it is, screen share. So, oh great, I can just pick. So this first picture this is one of our kids that we're working with. His name is Charlie. He is an absolute adorable young man. Yeah, let's see. Did he come up there?
Yep, he's right on your page.
Okay, excellent. So this is Charlie here. He's got epidermolysis bullosa, and this is actually after we've been working with him for a while. Now, what I want to show you is we were just trying to help modulate pain. So she sent me some pictures of his condition, and one of the things is he had a knee that was swollen and had been wounded for 7 years. So this picture here was his knee, and this had looked that way for about 7 years. And I wish I had current photos with me, but I don't. But we started using the cream on his knee, and about 5 weeks afterwards, she sent me this picture here, and I kind of want to show them side by side. So I'm gonna pull up my desktop here. She sent me this picture here that's now on the left, along with this one. So this one here is when we started, and it's not just the wounds that are horrific, but it's the size of the swelling in his knee. It's about like a softball. It had been that way for about 7 years. Within 5 weeks, the swelling had completely gone down to a normal sized knee here on the left. And you see the large wounds up here had almost completely healed. The large wounds all underneath had almost completely healed. And the biggest, deepest wounds had significantly shrunk in size. And they eventually disappeared. Unfortunately, that wound with these kids, the wounds they get re-injured. So it's about healing more quickly. But I think this picture is a great example of the power of the anti-inflammatory effect of some of these topicals, which also helped pain modulation significantly. Now, with his neck, we have, I'm missing that picture. Let me,
what's the concentration of the cannabinoids in the cream?
Well, it's about 7,000 total cannabinoids.
7,000 milligrams.
Yeah, about 5 in a 2-ounce jar. So it's around 100 milligrams per ml, I think. Right. So in a 2-ounce jar, there's about 5,200 milligrams of THC. Then we supplement with X amount of THCA, and then there's CBD and CBDA in there as well. And we also found, and this is just through experimentation, that once the cream is cooled, we reintroduce some of the terpenes. So some of our extractors are now able to isolate those terpenes for us, and we just micro reintroduce those terpenes back in. And we found a significant boost in efficacy when that happened as well. Now I have these photos. I'm going to grab a couple more here. Just bear with me 1 second.
Hey, listen, Forrest, people are donating all this money, so I'm going to need to either get an address or a bank account or something, like an email address to send it to you, because it's like already like $200+, maybe close to 300. So.
Oh, that's one. Yeah, thank you guys very much. All that goes into the infrastructure here of just being able to buy the creams and get the medicine made for the kids. I'm going to show one more set of pictures for you guys, which I thought was really, really powerful. And I wish I had the current ones with me. Next time we're on, if we want to do an episode where we can even talk to some of these kids or families, I can show you more. But let's see, screen share, and I'll get better at this as well. There we go. Okay, so, well, hold on a second. So what you see in this picture here is one of the places that crease the most. Come on, screen share, work with me. One of the places that crease the most is around the neck, right? And unfortunately, the first picture she sent, she had already put the cream on, but there was a wound from just under his chin, and then it was completely split under his arm or under the fold where his neck folds, and then they had to tape shut the wound here. And this is when we were just trying to work with modulating pain, and the mom sent to me 5 weeks later. I'm sorry, 3 weeks later, she sent me this picture because she went to change his bandages and she couldn't believe that how much better the wound looked and that how the majority of the wound had decreased. So this here is 3 weeks later, this picture here, right? So it's hard without being able to see side by side. Maybe we'll do the whole screen, but when you compare them side by side, you can see whole.
You can see the difference, Doug. Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you want to put them side to side, I mean, it's wow.
Right. So you can see where the entire, in just a matter of a couple weeks, right? This whole wound where the bandage was has completely closed. The red and nastiness, the inflammation had gone down, and the wound eventually started to close. This wound also had been there for 7 years because it was in a place where, they couldn't close it. So, anyway,
I cannot imagine the thought of actually having to tape my kid together. Dear God.
Yeah, the bandage changes alone. So this is, again, it's just about perspective, right? If we're introduced to who these cannabis products might be going to when we label them as medicine, we understand why we're sensitive about things being oversimplified, while we're sensitive about things about false hope potentially being given for those who don't really understand the complexity of the endocannabinoid system and cannabinoids and what they can and can't do. We just get protective. And that's not saying that cannabis isn't amazing. I wouldn't work with it if it wasn't one of the most amazing, effective compounds that I've ever seen in my life. With that being said, if you're starting to work with cannabis as a medicine, and because you're growing it, you're going to have some patients, you're going to go help. It's not a game. You need to understand what you're saying and be really careful about what you're promising or the claims that you're making.
And this is why we test and use science, because we don't want that type of mistake. That's why we started this in the first place, because we couldn't see that mold that gave us an infection that made us realize there's more to what we're not seeing. We saw a lot. Don't get me wrong. You can see a lot regarding your cannabis, but what you see visually versus what we can now see with science is now night and day. And it has changed everyone's perspective, and it will further. And this is where the responsibility has to be, that you have to pay for that testing. It has to find credible labs and do these things proper. Fuck, I love you, Forrest. You're amazing, man.
Hey, thanks.
Just seeing that, and I mean, I can't imagine how those parents must feel, but as helpless as they must feel at the same time, because they're reliant on you and a small batch of handmade medicine and access. I mean, what a fine razor's edge to walk.
Well, this is why I say for now, right? In meeting folks like you, the things that I've already learned from Tony and you guys and others, as our understanding grows, what I feel is if I just keep shouting it, we keep working together, the cannabis industry has the potential to be the greatest force for social good that we've seen in any of our lifetimes. Now, that doesn't mean to just be dramatic. Put it in the context with what we just saw in the work that I see every day. When we start getting the large businesses that are able to understand and participate in this, we can become the industry that can now offer the greatest amount of suffering reduction to those who need it most that we've ever seen. I can't think of anything in my lifetime that I could compare it to as far as hands-on, beneficial, immediate impact in the lives of those around us, other than, programs like Shriners Hospital and other things that are, some of the most charitable organizations on the planet. Cannabis has the ability to rival that with the right people and the right vision and just a little know-how. We have the ability to be as successful as we want as entrepreneurs, while at the same time doing things that we haven't seen in our lifetimes to benefit, catastrophically ill, terminally ill kids and people. So that's my soapbox, and I'm going to stay on it as long as I can, because I've seen firsthand the benefit of it.
As you should. And the audience is happy to fund it. The Grow Green Show's donated $20. Got a donation from Mitch for $50. Aaron sent $20. I think that might be Danish money. I'm not too sure. Mitch, sent $50. There's a whole list of people I just wanted to give a little shout out for offering.
Thank you, guys.
Lois Lane sent 20 sterling. Big love to Silas was the message. Tiernan sent 100 US through PayPal, as well as Shane sent $5 through PayPal initially. And every little bit helps, guys. Don't worry about any little bits that might be taken by PayPal or YouTube. I'll cover the entire donation. Whatever you donated, I'll send to Forrest, and nothing will be lost. And everyone will feel a little bit better about themselves for being humbled by these images and the realization that obviously lots of people have it worse than us. And so when we realize that, there's a real value in helping in the human experience. And we think it's acquired through the acquirement of stuff, where you make a lot of money and you buy yourself a lot of stuff, but that's empty. And the real true value in life is helping others. And when you help others that really need it, that's like the exponential. That's the best you can do. So obviously I don't have to tell you, Forrest, you're gaining the most incredible experience through this, I'm sure.
Oh man, it's one of the greatest highs. That's been one of my missions, is I want to take these people who have made cannabis their life and have pioneered, like yourself and what Todd has done as far as the patients go. And then I want to put these children in their hands. I want, when the mothers are crying and thanking us, I want it to be on their shoulders, because that's an addicting high as well. When you start getting that feeling of holy crap, it's one of the best feelings in the world. And if I can share that with as many people as possible, then you can you know, when you can get that dopamine release from doing amazing amounts of good in your community, you know, that to me can make a change. That to me can make a change that can spread. And, you know, we'll see. We're at 2 years on this Colladrace Network project, and things are growing exponentially. And I can't wait to see where we're at in 10 years, you know.
Absolutely.
Much respect, man. I mean,
agree,
my mom started an organization called American Council for Blind Parents because my brother was born without eyeballs and needed access to information because there was no information out there for the blind. Congratulations, your child was born blind. So I watched in my household it grow to an international organization in 40 countries in the span of 1 year because, you know, it catches fire because of, you know, oh shit, the people didn't realize how really you know, blind affected so many people in their lives. My father was born blind. My brother was born without eyeballs. So it's normal for me to have that in my life or to have that experience. And so it forced my mom into a realm of being an activist because she started to get calls from all around the world saying, hey, my child's born blind. I need resources. I need access.
Right.
So
that's what happened to me.
My guide. So thank you for taking and not only, you know, creating your torch, but holding it high for others. And in time, the American Council for Blind Parents was absorbed into the National Federation for the Blind and things like that. So that's what happened in 10 years. It was just absorbed into a larger national organization, which made now help, and it helps everyone. And so now anyone who has a blind child can call and have access to. So I wish that success upon your organization so that so many other people around the world can get access to that medicine as well as that knowledge to it. So I hope that catches fire.
I appreciate that. I mean, I appreciate that. I mean, that's kind of what happened. And that's why I'm here with you guys today is I got more active and used my son as an example. So it gave me a platform. More and more families started coming, you know, saying, we need this, we can't find it. I mean, I get more calls from anywhere, probably out of Washington State, because the way they've designed their laws, it's been a real challenge for them to get access to real medicine. So it's just, the more people that came to us, the more I was like, you know, I can't sit on this information and all this research we've done and not help them. So it started as consults, and then it's like, well, we can't find any of this. Where can we get it? And it just, you know, it kind of evolved out of that. It's like, there's got to be a better way. And you know, we can do it together, and it's been amazing. The response has been amazing. I mean, the cannabis community is full of some of the most amazing people I've ever met in my life, which only fueled me to not allow them to be demonized any longer.
Well, let's shout a few more of them out. Aussie just kicked down $20. Stoner Montreal just kicked down $20. BioTorch just kicked down $20. John Quixote just kicked down 36. Ed 209 with $4.20. NY Oler with $20. Euler, Dallas Big Plume with $20. Lois Lane with another 20 sterling on top of the 20 sterling she sent earlier, and Drew Roberts with $20. Thank you, guys. That's this will all get to the people that it's supposed to go to, I assure you. And it's great to see the platform be able to be used in a moment for something like this that is good. It makes me feel good.
You know, I want to point out that, you know, anybody, back in 1995, when I started the San Diego Compassion Club, it was simply out of me coming into direct contact with people that were sick and needing it as a medicine and looking for it. And initially, all we ever did was redistribute donated cannabis to people who needed it. And anyone listening to this can also do this. It's really not that hard. If you know people that have it and they're willing to give it to people that don't, you can be a middleman and help these people out. And a lot of times, the people I was running into at normal meetings and through Jack Harrer and doing the initiative, you know, there was a woman that had a young son that had cluster headaches that was shutting down his life. And she had no access at all to cannabis. And, you know, how are you going to sell this woman cannabis? You know, she's already on a limited income. You just want to help her child. And, you know, that's what caused me to start a bigger club, because it was, you just can't deny helping people once you're in a situation of being helped by cannabis. Yeah. At least that's how I feel. So everyone listening to this could become their own compassion clubs and trying to help the people around them. It's really a natural act of community.
Yeah. Just, you know, take the time to know what you're talking about. Don't sell false hope, but stick to the science, and it'll do itself. You know, it'll work itself out, because, you know, again, cannabis medicine is amazing. If you're responsible about it, it's very safe to go about if you're dealing with clean, tested product. And we're lucky enough with the Caladrius network where we have labs who donate the testing. So everything we get in, we get donations, we produce the medicine. It all goes into labs and is all lab tested, which has allowed me to do a whole bunch of science and experimentation that others haven't had access to, because we're able to have access to virtually unlimited testing. Those sort of things have been a real benefit, and it's really just about the cannabis community as a whole coming together, and they have not disappointed.
Hey, Forrest, let me also offer my consulting services for free. Hit me up if you need me for anything.
I will absolutely take you up on that. Yeah, thank you so much.
Now you can push send on those 42 emails you had made up for Mark Chaldone.
There you go.
No, I mean, I could probably help you in your testing and your formulation. So if you need any
no
help.
doubt about it. Yeah, just having access to people with that level of understanding and education to help pick their brain is an amazing resource.
We're out here. I mean, this is what I hear a lot, you know, and I see a lot more sort of, I won't call them legitimate scientists, but people who are embarking now in the cannabis industry, because there are careers to be had that can, you know, support a young, you know, family, and, you know, you could actually have a career now in the cannabis industry and be doing quality science and help, you know, make these standards accessible. And I think the thing is that, you know, you don't look at companies like Bubble Man's company or Tony's company. Companies aren't products. Companies are people. And so the human element and the human part of that equation is really, really important. And so everyone who's watching and all the people who want to get into the cannabis industry, you know, there's a lot of needs for jobs. I'm going to be probably hiring between 10 to 15 people in the next 2 to 3 years, just looking at the facilities that we're looking to put in new and legal states. There are so many different opportunities you could have. Just go get an associate's degree in math or chemistry. If you have a basic working knowledge of some of those fundamentals, you could really do well in the cannabis industry. A lot of people that I see that come into the industry and probably, again, have a degree in something or another, I think an employer looks at a degree and says, well, this person could put their mind to something and they could go to college for 2 or 4 years. And certainly it's something to put on your resume. But we're hiring mostly people without college degrees because, again, I think there's a whole lot of on-the-job training and a lot of things that they can really learn just being curious and looking to develop themselves by absorbing this huge quantity of literature that exists. And, you know, like one of the reasons why I was stuck before about the nomenclature of the molecules, Forrest, is because being a chemist and growing up with chemistry nomenclature, we name molecules based on the structure of the molecule, not based on what receptors they bind to. That's just a happy accident that they all bind to cannabinoid receptors. So like when I look at a structure, when I look at CBD, yes, you can call CBD tetrahydrocannabinoic acid or tetrahydrocannabinolic acid, but I can draw the molecule on you know, a piece of paper. I don't care what humans try to call it. It's that molecule.
Yeah, no, I got you.
The molecule, right?
I want to say that I think you've got about $500 donated.
Holy cow! I didn't even know you could donate through this show.
I'm having a hard time keeping track of it because part of it's going right through the live chat on YouTube, and another part is going through my PayPal account. I have a little donate button that I put up on Hash Church, and I thought if ever there was a time where people wanted to donate, I would just pass it forward. And we haven't really used it much, but it's working today in your favor, so that's great. I'll try to keep track of this. And
well, thank you, everybody.
Sorry, Growers Guild also is in the chat, and they said they would love to donate some THCA if it would serve a purpose for you. It's already been lab tested, and I believe Todd McCormick will be the interface for that to have to happen.
Oh, wonderful!
So, yeah,
wonderful.
Shout out to the Guild for offering that. Much thanks, guys.
We got a question on YouTube if I could talk about the grow an extra row. So I thought I'd just say it real quickly. One of the things I've been trying to do is just change new ways we can have charitable, programs within the cannabis industry. So at the Cloud Network this year, up in Northern California, we launched our 2 for Tots program, right? So I was like, how can we take advantage of people who already have paid the money to have the infrastructure for their grows, for their business, and just make it easier for them to contribute? So this year we had a whole bunch of genetics set up when we launched a 2 for Tots program where people who had organic farms and organic grows could come pick up CBD or medically beneficial genetics, throw them in their already existing garden, and then not have to do anything but really water them and keep them there to be able to then donate back at the end of the year. That's gotten us some attention up here because it was something different, but we have flyers everywhere out here for our 2 for Tots. So this year we've been blown away. Probably had 50 volunteers sign up to take a couple and then donate them back to kids. So we're looking to expand our families, by tenfold within the next year, just because of how much people have responded to wanting to help. So it's been really overwhelming. Just got to find a way to make a business model. The problem with this is that you're not allowed to be a 501c3 and deal with cannabis, even though we're a children's organization. Because of that, we deal with cannabis. We can't be a 501c3. So all these other organizations are able to get big donors because they use them for tax write-offs. But for us, raising money has been kind of a challenge because it's hard to get those bigger donors because they're not allowed to use it for a tax exemption. So really, I'm just a volunteer father who does this because I just have a passion to do it. So really appreciate all the people wanting to help, and the donations that came in today goes right back into buying jars and bottles and shipping and things like that for those kids. So it means a lot.
Thank you for pointing out that dichotomy about the 501c3, and that's one of those realities we've had here as not-for-profits here in California, is that, we can't get that 501c3. That's a federal certification, people. So that we can't, as medical cannabis dispensary or any kind of medical cannabis or cannabis anything, you can't get any sort of certification from the government until that changes at the federal level. Yeah. So that's why we have to act as not-for-profit. So, but you're a father who's just doing anything that he can, and as the pictures have shown quite dramatically, you're getting results. So happy to support and happy to see you get the support that you need.
I appreciate it. Yeah, cannabis. We started the conversation today by not making false claims, but I don't think it's a false claim at all to say that cannabis medicine has the potential to literally save lives. I mean, there were people that will be alive because they have access, or will not be alive because they don't. And, we just want to make sure that not making false promises that if you get access to cannabis, all of a sudden you're going to be cured. It's not magic, it's science. But by having the option, we can make sure that nobody ends up passing unnecessarily without even getting a chance to be walked through a chance to really explore cannabis and see if it's beneficial. So, that's the mission.
You bring up another great point regarding medical cannabis. Just my memory just went blank.
Nice. That's happened to me like 20 times today. I'll have a point and I'll be like, okay, this is super easy. I just have to hold this point. Oh, what did Mark say? Oh shit, it's gone. Oh, what did Todd just say?
Medical cannabis.
I think it's why we constantly, more than anything, just want to interrupt and talk over each other. It's not because we're rude. It's because we have the memory of a chickadee.
It's time for Barbara. Isn't that what that means?
Oh shit! And welcome to D420K to the room. My God, I think he's been. Sorry, D. We've been in the heavy conversation. I haven't even been able to say welcome.
Well, you know what? I jumped in on that conversation, and Forrest was talking, and I seen the pictures of that little boy and stuff, and it put tears in my eyes that this guy is doing what he's doing out of the goodness of his heart. I couldn't interrupt with a fucking bong rip.
I know.
Wayne,
I will.
Amazing.
Well,
thank you, man.
I'm amazed at what's going on, and I'm so proud to be even just sitting here on the panel listening to you, man. It's inspiring, and it just makes me want to do more and more. That's amazing, buddy. Thanks.
Hey, thank you.
Bong rip for the kids.
There you go.
For all of them, you bet.
You know what? It really also reminds me, I want to say this thing that Justin Trudeau, our prime minister, just keeps saying over and over and over and over again, is that we need to protect the children. And wow, would I ever like Forrest to sit down with Justin Trudeau and tell him exactly how cannabis can protect the children, and the children do not require to be protected from cannabis.
That's
Forrest,
it.
Do you take a slideshow with you on your phone to show these people, or because there's no way they can't be converted from looking at those pictures and seeing what you're doing. I mean,
well, yeah, I take an iPad and I force them to look at videos and pictures so that they can see it, and that's it. You have to show it to them. And I've sat down with the head of the BMCR, Lori Ajax. We've had this discussion here in California so that we can look at, when we start to talk about charitable models in late 2018, I want to be involved in that to make sure that there's something that I feel is doable and appropriate. And as well as with our state assemblymen and senators, here in California, we have some good forward thinking senators and assemblymen. But a lot of times they don't hear this aspect because a lot of the lobbying is based around business. And again, I don't have a problem with business. My concern is just when it dominates the conversation so much that we don't even get a chance to talk about some of these other applications and some of these other opportunities we could fold into the cannabis conversation. So, that's our, that we have a hashtag online that I've got parents to start that's called Make Them Watch. They have to see it. If people are going to have outdated ideologies that put people's lives at risk, they shouldn't be spared the consequences of that. And I highly encourage parents to film their kids suffering or adults to film what they're going through, and people should have to see what that actually looks like, because until we do, our human brain's not really designed to be able to really empathize, but when you can really show it to them and put it in their face, it helps them make better decisions. And we actually have some assemblymen here in California. I've been very fortunate. I was just down meeting with them this Monday for an advocacy day, who want us to come back and potentially have a bipartisan look at legislation in 2018 that will be like a charitable, catastrophically ill, terminally ill child protection act that will make it so that we can have donation models to protect some of these kids from exploitation in the market, and so that they don't have to go without because of the way Alma and 64 is framed in its tax structure. So yeah, I'm making them look, I'm making them watch, and I'm trying to push as hard as I can to give somewhat of a voice to this, small percentage of cannabis patients.
Sorry, I need to interrupt this as well. I see all the people donating in chat that just as soon as this was starting to talk, I was listening to it as soon as I jumped on. All of you guys are amazing too. I can't.
Yeah, unbelievable.
The way this all comes together and how it works, it's amazing, every one of you people. Good for you. Good for every one of you. Thanks.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't on my mind when we started talking today. I didn't even know you could do that through YouTube.
No,
Learned something new.
It fell together for me as well, just noticing it. And, we got to shout out to a whole bunch more people here. Tiernan, who kicked down 100, Shane Foley with 20, Jacob, Linda Wright, Greg Greenhow, Ashley Brotherhood, David, Brian. I'd say we're getting upwards of the $600 or $700 range now. So really great guys and gals. Thank you so much for that. It's nice to see the platform not only be used to share information, but also for emotion, the emotion to be transferred and received and sent right back through the donations. Very, very cool.
Compassion is fucking incredible, you mother lovers out there. I got to go, though. It's Italian Days on the commercial drive here, guys, and I'm out. It's we're going walking and enjoying up to 300,000 people on the road today.
Oh, definitely not driving my car down there today.
No, but all you people out there donating, and Forrest, you're an inspiration, man. And all you people donating, I really hope we're going to do the same thing right up here in Vancouver. Let's get on it. It's amazing. It feels good.
Well, for those of you listening and those of you who have influence, my whole dream with this is that this is a chapter sort of platform. So as we build the platform to help businesses get involved, I want to see it be my goal is for other people who are responsible enough to run it, then start chapters in their area so that local communities are all helping kids in their local, in their town and close, as opposed to an organization that is nationwide. So hopefully someday we can talk about that.
Love to be a part of something like that.
Yeah. Awesome.
Okay, guys.
God bless, brother.
God bless. Passion, peace, and love. Peace, everybody.
Take it easy, D. That was quite a shirt he had on, for those of you that noticed. It was funny. You'll have to go rewind the video. I'm not going to actually mention it. I'm not giving it away. We're not having a whole conversation about it, but that was quite a shirt that D had on. I will say that. Good guy. Well, what did we say? We got 650 viewers. We've been going at it strong for 3 hours. Did Tony never make it back? I thought he was having some problems. His computer died, and then his internet was being wonky too. So I'm not sure if he's going to be making it back. But
I have a question for Forrest, and it's how much do you also look at hemp seed oil and the EFAs as a potential solution? Are you familiar with the film Lorenzo's Oil and the true story behind that film?
So I'm familiar with it, and actually it's your talk and bringing attention to it that's made it more aware and something that I need to investigate. I haven't used it too much, really, until, for those who know, Todd and I spoke earlier this week, and kind of you giving the blessing on some of the products coming out of Canada really opened me up into looking at using it more, because some of the things that we had for years, last time I checked, they just weren't trustworthy. I just didn't have a good feeling about some of them. So I haven't looked into it. Well, I've looked into it. I haven't applied it much in our work. And since we talked last Monday, I've already been beginning to do some research on some of those companies out of Canada to see if we can get some efficacy increases by using that as some of our carriers. I'm going to start with Silas first and see what kind of results we get to help supplement some of those amino fatty acids that are available in there. But I'd love to hear more about it.
Well, the story behind Lorenzo's Oil became pronounced to me because one of the women that contributed to The Emperor Wears No Clothes, her name was Dr. Roberta Hamilton. She was a nutritionalist at the University of Los Angeles, and she was the one that brought much of the nutritional information to Jack, and in a sense, it's how it made its way into The Emperor Wears No Clothes. She was also the one that pointed out to me that I should watch the movie Lorenzo's Oil because it was based on a true story, and what it really was parents giving their children a combination of canola oil or rapeseed oil and olive oil, and the essential fatty acids in it were basically helping the child's condition. It's now referred to as Lorenzo's Oil, and it has proven to help in some cases, but now a study just came out like 25 years after the film or whatever, and it's showing that a doctor went off into the direction of seeing if the EFAs would work as a preventive medicine in children that had a predisposition to this particular disease. And they found that giving the oil to the children and enriching their essential fatty acids helped their bodies cope with this at an early age, and the children did not develop the disease in the rate in which they would have expected them to without this treatment. And why she brought this up to me is because in the movie, Lorenzo's Oil is depicted in a lot that it's like a mystery. They're like, oh, the oil has got some freaking magic in it, But the reality, she said, is there's no magic. The magic is really the essential fatty acids. It's just we know so little about them at the time. And she was explaining this to me in 1994. So I have to date her saying that back almost a quarter century. And, and the reality is now we've learned so much more. If you Google omega-3s, you learn a lot. And what she was pointing out is that nature combined these oils in hemp seed oil in the perfect ratios for long-term human consumption. And she was like, the fact that hemp seed oil is a perfect protein and has your three most essential fatty acids, linoleic, linolenic, and gamma linoleic. She was like, in perfect proportion.
Protein and oil are two different things.
It's amazing.
Todd, protein and oil are two different things. You're right. It's essential oils, but the proteins are consistent of the amino acids. And
Well, your
I
proteins are right. The hemp seed is a wonder. It's by every definition a
you got to
superfood.
remember, I mean, the seed's not making the oil. The seed's making the oil as part of its is part of the what's called the lipid bilayer. So all the lipids and waxes are basically part of this thing called a bilayer, which has to do with essentially the cellular walls of most plants. Some of them are cellulose, but in this case, what you have again is that, like you said, there is a particular. So all of these fatty acids are hooked to a glycerol molecule, and you could have very number of different fatty acids on the molecule. And what you find, you're absolutely right, is like steridonic is the one that I think Sam has made reference to before. But there's like 4 or 5 of these long chain polyunsaturates that you don't find in anywhere else in the human diet. I mean, this is like the place to get it, you know? And so, yeah, absolutely. It's like, it's a superfood. It qualifies as a superfood because it has stuff that there's no other counterpart in
Well,
our
her biggest point was Dr. Roberta Hamilton's biggest point was that we don't need to wonder if we all start consuming hemp seed oil. She was like, it will benefit us all, because what she pointed out is that most people are malnourished because they started processing our food in the 40s and 50s, and every single bit of it went for shelf life. And she said the one thing that we didn't realize we were doing was we were killing off these very fragile EFAs that have been crucial, essential, if you will, for our development and our well-being. And, you know, up to the point of refrigeration and dry storage, she was like, you got to realize our food changed dramatically in the last half of the 20th century, and not for the better. And, you know, she initially made the point that when she first got hemp seed oil, she thought someone was playing a practical joke on her, because it had like 5 times as much gamma-linoleic acid as a fish, as the best fish. It had a perfect balance of LNA and LA, and she couldn't believe it. And I mean, it had more digestible protein than than beef and chicken and turkey, and it was just under soy for its total amount of protein. She really thought someone was playing a practical joke on her. And now that we know all this about the endocannabinoid system, every single person listening to this would benefit by going out, getting hemp seed oil, incorporating it into their diet. If you want to get the proteins, you'll have to get the dehulled hemp seed, because when you separate basically the meat of the seed from the oil, you lose the proteins. Because the protein,
the little hearts, right?
The hearts, yeah. It's like picture a peanut with no shell. That's a deshelled hemp seed.
And they sell those, and I sprinkle them on my salad. You can buy deshelled hemp seeds.
Yeah, you can get it at Trader Joe's, I think.
And Whole Foods.
Why I point this out to people is because if in smaller doses it's helping people with medical conditions that are extreme, it could help people maintain their health a great deal. So this is a way to stimulate your endocannabinoid system without having to smoke or consume cannabis.
Yeah, I think that's one when we talked about earlier as well. You know, when we talk, just to bring this conversation back full circle, we were talking about cancer, how these other things that people do with their diets and with exercise, but those as well have been found to be the best ways to boost your endocannabinoid system, you know, that aren't supplements, right? The exercise helps anandamide levels in the body. The change in diet, your diet affects your endocannabinoid system. It's great to hear a conversation that is talking about the full spectrum of ways it can be influenced and how important each one of them are, as opposed to just a hyper-focused approach of a supplement. You know?
Yeah, well, the biggest piece of those molecules of the endocannabinoids is the eicosanoic acid, right, which is the long-chain fatty acid that's related to the arachidonic acid metabolic pathway. But again, this is a ubiquitous compound, but by supplementing your diet with it, you're basically giving your body more of the precursor to make anandamide. Makes sense, right? Totally makes sense to have a diet rich in eicosanoic acids.
Yeah, I've got a whole other line of questioning I want to get into with you, Mark. Maybe next time, so I know we're getting low on time. but
Yeah, we gotta spread our content from week to week, right? Bubble Man will get pissed, right? If we have a major core dump this time, we need to 2 weeks from now for
Natural flow.
There you go. Next time we'll get into the variability.
We gotta have a slow week because it's the summer and people are doing shit, right? Like people check in. I mean, not everyone's at church. That's the great thing about Hash Church. I mean, you never know when it's going to be a sleeper episode with just a couple people, or you've provided such wonderful content here for us. And
thank you.
Not just as a parent, but as a well-informed advocate, and being able to help people understand and navigate the 280E hole of charitable organizations, which again unfairly penalizes this industry.
Yeah.
Like, imagine if they did that to the alcohol and tobacco industries. There would be outcries. I mean, so yeah, this is just this madness has to end. Well, here's the question for us: if they get rid of 280E, and maybe ATN, you can comment on this. Does 280E end the chokehold that they have over those charitable organizations?
Well, 280E is one thing. It's more of the federal law. 280E doesn't have an effect on what charitable organizations can be or be certified as. However, 280E does affect any test. Yes, it could be. Right. I mean, and it's being worked on at the federal level because it's very draconian and very against the realities. But as well as banking, the inability to bank is still regarding federal law. So even if he were able to even get through that impasse, then it's still if you actually stated that you were a cannabis charity, you wouldn't have a bank to actually put that money in.
Right.
So there's many layers to this fucking onion, unfortunately.
But
280E has 280E of course has its parents
trying to attract major investment from people who need that credit on their tax bill. And again, if this was any other industry or any other cause or any other thing, we wouldn't be having this discussion. But because it impacts cancer and because it impacts epilepsy, I mean, this thing has tentacles all throughout human health. And it just, to me, it would seem like we could somehow bring this case to the government as being the first thing they have to do is get rid of 280E.
Yeah.
Because completely penalizes the industry, it penalizes forest organization, and it really ends up penalizing ourselves for no reason whatsoever. It was the drug kingpin law, so they couldn't write multi-day junkets down to Miami off on their cocaine IRS bills, I mean,
or their airplanes or their cars or their weapons.
No, it has nothing to do with the legalization or medicalization of cannabis, but it's had this unintended horrible effect that has really stymied growth in the industry.
Yeah, there's no shortage of hurdles to get over. I mean, 280E is a nightmare, but Prop 64 in California, the one that legalized it, didn't help us much either. I mean, some of the biggest changes we need to make for a charitable organization to exist is voted into law by the people in the tax structure, and you can't change it without a vote going back to the people. I mean, the leaf tax in California alone, for those who don't know, is insane. I've talked to, it's somewhere around 80%. It's like 45. What is it? $45 a pound for trim leaf tax, right? So if someone wanted to donate 100 pounds of just trim for us to go and work and try to donate to kids, we'd be on the hook, for $4,500 to the state, that we would have to come up with. And some of those things have to be, I mean, there's some numbers there, but it's just some of the tax implications alone make it impossible. It's a long road, but we're going to keep chugging away at it.
Yeah, well, I have that issue too because I give away to free medicine to 200 patients a week that don't meet the low income realities of what it costs now that congratulations, you have a medical condition now. You have to now go take care of your other medication as well as, your cannabis now. So those people that meet that low income, they're in danger. And so, so we're working on lobbying on that issue too. So we're kindred spirits in that one because I never want to leave those people out, because it's crucial that, you know, there are just times. Look, I've been poor, I've been homeless, I've been on the street before. I know what it's like. I have had that reality before, and that's why I've never forgotten those realities and don't want to ever not be able to send that elevator back down. And this is a frustration that we do have, and we're working on it in Sacramento, but we need more steam to that. Without a doubt.
Keep me in the loop, man. I'm happy to meet you down there and join you in those efforts for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, they need to work on this in Washington, D.C., and that's why I was happy to report. I was at a client's facility, is one of the 8 licensed grows in D.C., and literally blocks from Jeff Sessions' office, there's licensed operations growing like it stinks like Denver. You know what I'm saying?
Well, the problem is, I don't know if you've realized, there's some sort of circus going on currently in DC that has kind of really shifted any kind of focus, including 280 and all these other realities.
Circus. We said it here months ago. Bernie should have been the president.
Well, we're enjoying the circus full hand, and unfortunately, it's affecting the realities of the banking issue, the 280E, and all those things, because of the inability to have leaders lead, as well as we can go down and talk ourselves blue in the face. We're still staring up against 1,000+ other lobbyists for the pharmaceutical, the alcohol industry, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So your work is very much before us.
Me out of the bottle when I'm in Portland and Seattle and obviously Denver and San Francisco, but really great to see the genie out of the bottle blocks away from the Washington Monument, the White House. It's just, I don't know, maybe it's the East Coast United States. It's a different place than there's no In-N-Out burgers, you know. It's just it's a different place, you know.
I lived in DC for 3 years. I can't imagine what it must be like because of how draconian it was there. But I'm glad to see that there's some smells of change afoot.
Yeah, well, I liked how basically the DC City Council told Congress to go fuck themselves and rolled out the program anyway.
Well, that's because Congress has told the city of DC to go fuck itself since its inception. So, you know, it's a give take, man. I learned way too much about that politics, and it's really fucked up in DC.
Awesome. The people who run DC are awesome. They're doing a great job down there. They really are.
They're doing the best they can with what they're given, man, and Congress doesn't give them much.
Hey, and like I said, there's fields of hemp now growing in the great state here in Pennsylvania. We have operations that are being put into Maryland. So there's 3, strongholds right there on the East Coast here in the Mid-Atlantic. It's going to spread like wildfire, guys. It's going to be, just wait. It's going to be great.
Well, yeah. While states get opened up, you'll see the rest of the world jump on the bandwagon too.
Yeah, they planted hemp as well as in Washington State the other day. Well, so you got it on the East Coast and the West Coast. So, hey, Middle America, you've got some work to do.
Yeah, it's like, but every state has got a bill. I don't think there's a state without a bill. Maybe, I don't know. Is there still a lawsuit between Kansas and Colorado? Did they throw that out?
That was tossed. There was an appeal that just happened regarding that allowed the RICO statute to move forward for the individuals, but not allowing the states to enjoin because the states were not directly impacted or injured. So that's where it's been narrowed to the individual farmers who are suing. These individual farmers are suing a grow or a legal grow next door, stating that the scent is illegal because marijuana is illegal, so therefore marijuana shouldn't be growing there. And that just went through a federal appeals court, came down literally this week stating that. So the state is appealed its ability to enjoin, and so the states were kicked out by the appeals court, but it is still allowing the individual to proceed at that. And that's where we are.
Yeah, it just seems like a bunch of waste of court time, a bunch of waste of lawyer time. It's just a waste of taxpayer money.
Yeah, it is, no doubt about it. But at the same time, this is the desperate lengths that people are going to, and the abuse of RICO standards or things like that have a potential to damage, if not shut down, the U.S. industry, if not dealt with and the appeals level. So now this will, of course, be appealed, but now we have to wait for that appeal to take place.
You got to get in the picture. You see yourself here?
Yeah.
Oh, there's the man.
Hey, what's up, buddy? You're on TV. He's on TV.
Must be summertime, huh? Oh, it's
Hey, buddy.
out. You're muted.
Oh yeah, he is muted. Weird.
I was muted. Yeah, he's been wondering what I'm doing back here. I said, well, come say hello.
It's like I'm talking to the computer.
Yeah.
To all the people.
Hey, Silas. Good to have you, buddy.
Yeah, it's great, man. Well, hey, thanks for having me on here today, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, me too. Thank you for coming on and just opening the dialogue, keeping when I saw Todd's post about cancer and how people misread it, and then him coming back and you sort of being like, hey, this is a good dialogue. And I was happy that you guys said, yeah, let's do this on Hash Church. I think it would be a great dialogue.
I just think it's important because, I think the people who read it wrong, it's that defensive nature I think they feel like their heart's in the right place, but it's just, you got to understand it's just a much more nuanced and in-depth understanding that an experience level that brings people to say caution. I mean, it's like, for me, it's the more I know about cannabis, the more caution I have when I speak about it, and the less I'm willing to confidently say we know. But remember, when those beginning years, when you first start to understand the science of it and understand how it works, it's really easy to be like, yeah, cannabis cures cancer, it's great, But the more you work with it, the more you realize, and then you hear the people who understand it the most. You wonder why they tiptoe around things, or they're really kind of open-ended about it.
Why we start every sentence with what we know about cannabis today.
Right. It's because the more you know about it, the more you know it's like, well, none of this is absolute, but there are some great things that it does,
Yeah.
And that's one thing, that's what I was wanting to talk about earlier when I lost my train of thought, was that word cure. And I think that's also something that Todd and I have discussed, and many people have had an issue, is they say cannabis and cures this, cannabis does this, and they throw that blanket statement out there, and I know they mean it well, but they don't realize the damage that it causes, because yes, it can help or it can assist people in curing themselves, but it is a step and a tool along the way. It doesn't, to say that cannabis cures this can be demonstratively bad.
Well, and nothing's going to cure life. And I think that has to be a realistic trip on this too, because we are just looking for ways to make our existence on this planet as comfortable and healthy and happy as possible. We are all inevitably only here for so long. We need to respect the life we have. We need to help others make it their way through it when they're less fortunate. And realistically, cannabis can help us do that. It can give us the medicine we need. It can help us with its oils and its proteins to be a preventive medicine. They can give us the nutrition that can make us be healthy and not need the medicine so much. So if we look at this as a holistic approach, cannabis is the path to wellness.
Yeah, and it can be the factor that leads to being cancer free. It absolutely can. It's just you will know once you start working with it and once you try it. And I think that's different than selling it as a cure all. But yeah. Well, hey guys, I appreciate you having me on. I got to get running here pretty soon. Thanks for having me on today.
Yeah, thanks so much, Forrest. It was a real pleasure to have you on and share all these different stories and information. I'm going to be in touch really soon to forward people. There's still other people in the chat room that want to link with you and donate different things. And I'll go through these different ways that money came in, and I'll try to get it all screenshotted and added up and send you a chunk through however you want to receive it.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll come on. Next time I'm on, we'll talk about how it got put to use so that those people know exactly how it went to these kids and how their donation helped, because it takes a village. And with all of you folks helping, it allows me to do more for those kids and those families. And that's what it's all about. So thank you.
Absolutely.
thank you for humbling us with your presence and your pictures and your stories, as well as, you know, what you're doing. You know, we can't thank you enough. I mean, it's one thing to hear, it's another thing to see it. So thank you for making us all aware and enlightening us to the possibilities and what's really, you know, a whole other level of medical cannabis.
Oh man, the honor and pleasure is all mine. I look forward to seeing you in Sacramento soon.
Awesome, guys. Well, next time we'll have to invite Wade back on as well. I miss having Wade on. He's got some good vibes, and you guys are great together. So everyone else that came out and spent their time with us, all the 600 to 700 people that watched live, and of course the regular panelists from Etienne to Todd and Mark and Skunkman, and even D420K and Johnny B, who left a little earlier, and of course Tony Verzura, who shared a bit of time with us. Thank you guys for sharing your time with us. It means a lot. I know that it means a lot to people every Sunday to tune in and to learn this stuff. And I know this episode in particular is going to be one that gets shared a lot. So yeah, thanks everyone for being a part of it. And we'll talk to you next week here on Hash Church. Peace out, everybody.
Bye, folks.